And welcome everyone to a new episode of the Wikid Podcast. I'm your host Michael from Wikid Publishing. I am one of the co-founders, and we're back after a long months of hiatus, and we're going to hopefully get back to a more regular schedule here. And I'm joined by some really awesome creators here today, who are graciously giving me their time and your time as well. And so, thank you. Do me a favor and welcome them all. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today?
Hey.
Howdy.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Why don't you introduce yourselves? So we'll go in order. Why don't you start with you, Cody, and then we'll go in counterclockwise order, I guess.
All right, folks. I'm Cody with Ironverse Comics, the weird Western imprint here. And I make comics. I don't know how much more interesting I am than that. But, we'll go from there. I need more.
Pretty interesting to me, man. And next up, we got Canales of the.
Well, my name is Ibai Canales. I write and draw Decimators for Wikid Publishing, which is always a pleasure. I also drew Ironsides and a bunch of other comic kit projects. And I'm also Spanish, but you know what they say, nobody's perfect.
True.
My name is Michael Nunley. I'm the founder of Omen Comics. I'm also a podcaster. I write Omen, Gallowsman, Dragon Girl, Albino Warrior, and Satyr for Wikid Publishing.
Woo! Well, I like it. Love to see all the comics talk out there, man. You guys are really great creators, each in your own right, and have done some really amazing work. So I recommend everybody out there to check them out if you haven't done so already. And but yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We were just chatting a little bit before we started, and it's been a while since we've been on one of these podcasts, hasn't it?
Oh yeah,
it's been too long. I missed it.
I know, right? We used to do them like it was every other week that we would do them.
Yeah,
and then we kind of
something like that.
I don't know what happened. I think everybody just got busy, and then it became harder to schedule. And I don't know if the pandemic had anything to do with it. I don't know when the last consistent episode was, but has it? I wonder if it's been that long. I know we did one 9 months ago, but that was God, yeah, that was a while ago.
That's quite a hiatus.
Yeah. And Michael, have you been on one of these before?
Have I been on one of these before?
Yeah, I couldn't remember if you had signed on with us last time.
When you were doing these regularly, I think I did probably 5 or 6 of them before.
Well, I know you did the one-on-one stream with me, right? That's like the different show. That's the campaign countdown.
No. I went on the regular Wikid Weekend Publishing thing like 5 or 6 times.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure because you're our newest. For those who don't know, you're the newest creator we signed on, I believe. Or most recent, right, I should say. Yeah.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud to say that I'm one of the ones that bugged Mike into making this happen again.
Good. Thank you.
He was also helping me. He was helping me get set up so we can move these over to Stitcher or Google Podcasts or whatever it might be. Whatever platforms people are using these days. And I think that would be nice to try and expand our audience other than just YouTube.
Yeah.
That would be nice. And I think this kind of comic or this kind of podcast mostly works in audio form as well.
I don't know. I have this on Countless Corpses podcast.
Mm-hmm.
While we offer it both on YouTube and in podcast form.
Mm-hmm.
And while people have said they prefer the audio format,
mm-hmm.
I gotta say that the views on YouTube would say differently.
Well, I have to. I can appreciate that, but I counterpoint that. I wonder if it's mainly because with audio podcasts these days, it's so split among so many purveyors. Like you got so many different platforms now, like probably a dozen different places to listen to. So maybe it's, I don't know. Like I don't know how your metrics are counted, but could it be a matter of it just being split among multiple platforms or something? Perhaps, or is it?
That's actually one of the things about Anchor is that it once you get that RSS feed, you can put it on multiple platforms and it keeps track of it on all of those platforms.
Interesting.
So I'm getting about twice the viewership on YouTube than I am on audio. Although everybody that I put out a poll and everybody that answered said they preferred audio. So
Well, I was
mean,
one of those people who said that.
Yeah.
I listened to the first 2 episodes on audio. I actually really enjoyed it listening to audio because I was like doing some other things, and I was like, I want to listen to some horror talk right now, and like it was really fun to listen to.
How did that first episode? I got all festive and I wanted to wear my Michael Myers mask, and so my voice is all muffled. How did that first episode go?
Yeah. It's not too bad. I did notice what you're saying. Like there was a little bit with the audio, but it
Yeah.
wasn't too noticeable. And like and by the time I was like a couple minutes in, I was like, I've already forgotten it, and so
Nice.
it wasn't super bothersome at all.
Right on,
I
right
still
on.
really enjoyed the conversation between you and Jimbo Hermit over there. That was
Sweet.
quite fun. And then I'm actually waiting with anticipation for episode number 3. I'm hoping it's coming soon.
Oh yeah. We should be doing it on 1, 2, 3 on the 4th.
Nice. Good.
Covering Halloween 2.
Nice. That's a good
But
one,
Cody does a bunch of live streaming and stuff too.
Oh
I
yeah.
do sometimes, lately. So there's a rough period. I mean, everybody these last couple years, right? But there was a rough period the last couple months where I had the time and I would do it. And then now recently, since I've gotten some feet back under me and got some work going and all of that, I've been able to make one every Wednesday morning, but I haven't been doing it as often. I haven't done any gaming stuff or anything like that. But at least I've been able to keep my head down and keep the work moving, and everything's moving forward. I love doing it. I like. I really mainly like setting up the presentation parts of it, like actually doing the podcasting and the live streaming is it's fun when you're in the moment. I've always done I played music for years, and so I like that little bit of being on stage a bit, but at the end of the day, like I'm more into the creative end than the performance end on basically any of these spectrums, right? Like
you've had some pretty legendary drinking live streams though.
I've also cut that back down.
Good.
Yes, I have.
That's probably for the
What was it?
best.
The one for issue 3 when I launched. I didn't expect a really big launch day, which it ended up being, and being a man of my word, I drank myself sick.
Oh my God.
Well, it was fine. Like during the cast, like I held everything down, and then like within a half hour of finishing, and the focus was done, the performance was over, then everything just hit me, and that was a fun night to remind me not to do that again, or at least figure out how to scale it better, right? But since then, I've tried to significantly cut back on that just for my own mental health and such.
well-being.
But yeah, exactly. But I'm a big fan and proponent of ritual, right? It's one of the few ways to get things done, and that was one way to set up a framework that would help me get something done and be entertaining and all of that.
That's
right?
smart, man. That's really smart.
And that's a bit why I've kept up on these Wednesdays when I just honestly I'm forcing myself because I'm kind of beat. Is because of that, right? So it's why a lot of people are able to build platforms, right? Is because they are consistent and have this
True, man.
footing
That's
under
so
them.
true.
And most of my anything has been, it gets done, but like the time frame is very, very inconsistent of whatever creative bit I'm doing,
man.
right? But with podcasts or with a live streaming, right, consistency so that people who like you know where you are and when you're going to be there is that's the first thing you should have under you. And I've very rarely had that work
today,
for
bro.
very long. Well, I don't know.
I am really. No, you're really opening my eyes how important it is to we need to get this podcast back on our schedule. Just being there.
Yes.
And so the fans out there, the readers know where we're at, where we're going to be. Like you said, I never thought about that.
I mean, even if you're only getting a couple of viewers, which is tends to be what I do,
right?
Unless something it cultivates that, and it gives them a place to show their support that's free and to interact and get to know you as a person, which is becoming so much more and more important in the creative field. Period, because most everybody's got some kind of creative endeavor, but who are you? Right. You can have an amazing product. You can have something amazingly beneficial to people. And if folks don't like you or don't know you these days, it's much harder to get any kind of footing under you.
People want to connect with you.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
feel like they
Especially if
know
they're
you,
putting their
right?
money. I mean, people are very tired of giving money to faceless
Mm,
corporations, right? And so that
mm,
also allows the independent creator to kind of stand
that's
out and,
interesting.
and find a brand or find a resonance with people. And you'll see, you know, a lot of Twitch streamers, right? They have their unique identity and they are able to cultivate that. And
True.
even with an inconsistent schedule, or at least a relatively inconsistent schedule, once you reach a certain level, people will be there for you.
I
They'll make
don't know
time
if this
for
is a
you.
thing in I don't know if this is a thing in the US, but here in Spain, this is the fascinating phenomenon of YouTubers who have comics made about them. Like,
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
yeah, just imagine if somebody like turned PewDiePie into a fictional character and threw him like in like crazy space adventure against like aliens or
What?
something. Yeah, that's the thing that
What am
happens
I
here in Spain.
hearing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
YouTuber
so
comes. So,
confused, bro.
part of this, right, and I think you might understand it from this angle, Mike, is that I've noticed this as well, Ebi. It's just a slightly different perspective. Is that, for instance, musicians has as well have jumped onto the comics bandwagon
It's true.
because it seems to be a comics are in the cultural zeitgeist right now. Whether or not people actually read and pick them up, that's a whole different story. But
Yeah.
they're in there. They're part of it. People want to be a part of that one way or another. And so musicians, especially with the pandemic, who couldn't, you know, they couldn't tour, they couldn't do their work. All they could do is record. And if you can't support the album with live performances, they make no money. That's all the studio's money. So it's rough. Or the label's money, excuse me. But so I saw a lot of musicians from all kinds of spectrums, the metal heads. I've seen hip hop artists. I saw all kinds of folks. In fact, recently with Esum and that work, right? That's just another manifestation of it. Is folks are thinking that this is a medium that can be broken into, and in a lot of ways it can. It's a very simple, very by the bootstraps kind of work. If you're willing to do it, you can make a comic, right? But at the same time, I think a lot of people overestimate its reach and its actual financial capability. But for YouTubers and folks who can consistently, they have a brand, right? Is what you're talking about. Any of these other folks who are bringing a brand into comics, I think that gives you a head start, no question. And I think it's neat. I hadn't seen a YouTuber do it though, so that's interesting within Spanish. But you know, Europe has a very different perspective on comics as well than the U.S. And so maybe it feels a bit more professional to them than other places. But I don't know. I would be curious to see how well that does over there. I'd be very curious.
I wouldn't mind reading a comic book with, like, I don't know, Sargon of Akkad as the main character. It would be interesting.
Oh yeah, it depends, right? I mean, some folks like you'll see artists who then try and write and it's terrible, or you'll see writers who then try and learn. So it really depends. Like a talented individual. I would definitely want more of that person to be in the work. A lot of the folks, especially bands and other brands, they hire a mid to low range creative team.
Yeah,
I would rather them actually like at least write. I would like to see more of those artists if I'm paying for their branding on it, right?
You guys remember that band Coheed and Cambria? Didn't they do like a comic book?
I don't know. I didn't follow them that much. I saw them live back in like 2010. They opened for
really?
But yeah, no, I didn't follow.
Guitar Hero really made them really popular.
Welcome Home, yeah, that was the only song I knew when they were doing it. That is not my favorite Welcome Home. My favorite Welcome Home is Metallica's Sanitarium, but nonetheless, I mean, Disturbed did it, Megadeth did it, Maiden's been doing comics for a while.
Interesting. I know Machine Gun
Don't
Kelly
forget
did a
Kiss.
comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Kiss, of course. Kiss was doing it before it was cool, but that's Gene. He tried to grab hold of anything he could make money off of. Anything.
Yeah, they were like, wasn't that like McFarlane Todd McFarlane making Kiss comics?
That would have been the right way to go if they're gonna throw money around. Get a comic book guy on it.
You know what's really cool about the first Kiss comic is that they actually put they had a nurse come and take blood from them, and they actually put it in the, I think it was in the ink or in the color or some kind of shit. So I mean, like, if you actually took that apart, their DNA is actually in the ink on that shit.
Yeah, that's how they do it. I mean, what they were doing that to Stan, Mr. Lee, at the end of his life too. They were having him sign stuff in blood-laced ink, which
Yeah, but apparently they learned the wrong lesson from the Kiss comic.
yes, exactly. For Kiss, I mean, again, it's that's part of their branding is that, right? They were never really heavy metal. They're pop kind of fun.
Yeah.
They were rock and roll, just a little bit harder than the Beatles. They wanted to be the Beatles, but it's definitely different with Stan. That one felt more vampiric than like, oh, let's make a show. But yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, any kind of bit, right, that you can make to stand out, and that Kiss has been doing that forever. Even when like most of their albums have, 2, 3.
Well, I think
songs,
Kiss
the
always
rest
had
is
like
junk.
this nerdy aura to them, didn't they?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they were like, if you were into comic books, you were also into Kiss, and like if you were into Kiss, you were also into D&D and stuff. Like for some reason, I don't know.
Well, I could get that. Like they were the first, like, well, I don't know first, but they were one of the first who really took the cosplay bit to the performance as well. Right. I think that's how they stood out when they were building an audience in New York. They did the look, right. That was like 90% of the appeal. And then again, they have some great songs. I am a Kiss fan. There's a lot of music I like, but if you actually go through their albums, like there is a lot of just like, let's finish an album kind of work. And and so it's tough.
understanding is that Gene is actually a huge comic book fan himself, and the whole costumes idea came from that, wanting to emulate that type of an idea.
That makes sense.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because they basically try to turn themselves into metalhead goth Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
like making four dudes who could be like instantly recognizable by their like the looks, their iconic faces,
Right, their image was a lot more threatening than their music actually was.
Oh, so much.
If parents were to actually just listen to their music instead of and just ignore the whole Knights and Satan service, and that whole front they put up.
I will never get over like the metalheads at my local pubs, like headbanging at Motorhead, and then suddenly headbanging at the same time. I was made for loving you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Serious? Yeah. Dude, this is Kiss. This is metal, dude. Like, really? Okay.
It's like someone tells you like
metal is Rod Stewart in some cases.
You're looking at red, and I know that's green, man.
Oh man!
Oh really? Okay.
Oh man! Metal is Rod Stewart. Holy shit!
That's what I said. Knights and Satan. I mean, with Kiss, man, that's about it. I mean, they have a song that's literally they wrote for Rod, and he wouldn't buy it. They're like, fine, we'll just record it ourselves, and they did, and it's an okay song. Was that Brandy or No? What is that song? Oh, that's gonna bug me. But yeah, that's the bit, right? Again, I kind of circle back around to the YouTuber. It's about building a brand identity and then having that in front of people and then seeing if people enjoy it and then working on that and refining it, which Kiss did forever. It was a huge deal when they unmasked. It was a big deal, even though, I mean, they were just literally wearing face paint, so you can kind of see how they looked anyway. It's not like Slipknot when they unmasked, right, which was taking it to another level, right? They were doing the same thing Kiss was doing, but we're going to do it this way. It's a lot of that in any way you're trying to do art and you're also trying to make money off of it. Having some kind of performance into it is super important. And again, especially these days where everybody is already trying to do that edge. So it's tough.
Looks like Laguna Munta had something to add to that in the
Thank you, Hard Luck Woman. Thank you. I'm glad he showed up because he's the one who introduced me to Kiss. Actually,
he also says Gene was also very cool to the people creating the Kiss comic. They were doing it without Kiss permission, and when Gene found out, he reached out to work with them instead of suing.
Oh, that's very un-Gene Simmons.
It's out of character. Yeah, I was just gonna say
that's actually been like the total opposite of Metallica, Lars Ulrich.
Yeah, right. If I could,
Hard
build
luck
on what you were saying there, Cody.
Yeah, please.
Something that both Omen Comics and Revelation Comics is focusing on doing over the next couple of years specifically is building an audience, and we are totally doing that with doing stuff like going on podcasts like this, but also with Omen Revelations podcast and with going on other podcasts and stuff with Countless Corpses podcast. We're trying to establish an audience there. We're trying to let people know about our comics. We're trying to let people know about us, the people who are writing the comics, because you are definitely part of your brand. You are definitely part of what people are buying there, and that's totally something that we're doing. And I think podcasts really do a lot to do that.
Oh, absolutely. That's my big thing too. Whenever I tackled these over the years, one of my main bits wasn't so much to get backers or whatever off of it. It was to connect with the individual who hosts it, and then if they connect with me, most likely the audience that they've established will have some similar resonance because they are there for them. And so that's been a lot of my my work over the last few years in terms of like I might not be what was that Jack Sparrow, but you have heard of me, right? That's been my that's what I've been shooting for, is that I would say I've probably connected with somebody in almost every publisher in some form or another, maybe not up in the higher arts, but artists or writers or whatever, especially in the indie scene from Scout and Heavy Metal and a few others. Like my bit was to have a footing, and to then you let your work and you let your character shine from there, and then hopefully it builds from something. And so far I've lucked out. Even with many falls, let's just call it. But almost done with issue number 4's production. So I mean, that's great. A lot of folks don't get past the number 1, but
True.
it's really important. It's also important not. In every performance, there should be like it should start from a very deep kernel at the very least, but maybe something more solid than a kernel, a diamond or a rock, something heavy of honesty and earnestness and of what you want. A fake performance can do as much harm as good, in my opinion. I've seen that very much, particularly in social media. You see a lot of fake performance because it's the thing to do at the moment, and it's that'll turn me right off. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who recognizes that and is like, okay,
the whole internet persona thing is getting old really fast.
Yes.
Nobody buys that you're like that in real life. So.
Here's a question. As far as building the audience goes, me and Steve are actually writing even for other publishers. To try and get some word out. For instance, we're both doing a thing for Rain Cross Press right now. And
yeah, I'm so excited for that, man.
Yeah, the whole idea is that maybe people will read that and say, hey, I recognize this guy's name, and maybe it'll help check. Have you guys done anything like that? Do you plan to do anything like that to maybe help build an audience or spread it out a little like that?
Back in 2018, 2019, I want to say, I wrote a series of short stories for a small publisher called Ashcan Comics Publishing, where he was doing like creator sourced anthologies, where you would do, you'd have a writer who would, write something, and then you'd have somebody who would do a piece for almost like a cover illustration or what have you. I've done that. That was fun. I've done different small editing gigs, things like that. I've worked with Manny Shapes over at Prophecy Productions, the guy who puts out El Crudo, but he also is now putting out 8 Fights. I did a short for 8 Fights. That was a lot of fun. 8 Fights has got a great little bit for its setup, and he showed me how he's setting up the business part of it, and I'm really excited to see it gain more traction because it's a very smart way to do the business and shares, to do this kind of anthology kind of storytelling and keeping it productive and profitable. So I'm excited to see that move forward. And I've just always tried to be helpful is the other bit, right? In terms of, if folks have questions or concerns or anything, because I've worked very hard, and I'm sure you folks have as well, learning as many aspects of comic creation as possible. And I find if you're not sharing the gifts and knowledge, then it tends to degrade or turn back around on you eventually. And so I've always tried to do that. And I think that helps with that. A lot of folks do interviews is another great one to do it. Like the folks here at Wikid have done many creator interviews. The act of using whatever platform, small or large, that you have and sharing it and trying to grow it, I think is a great way to increase that resonance. In terms of other publishers, all that have like been interested in working with me in any form have been very small. So it that reach has been more for like, I want to help this individual because I like them, right? I want to see their work succeed, and they're helping me out, whether it's with a paycheck or not. I wrote a short also in the Kill Journal from Gifted Rebels by Adam Lawson. The whole most all of the Ironverse Comics team worked on that book in some shape or form. Steve did all the colors. Maxie did a short as well. So that was great. It was a great working with him. It was a great like editorial experience as well. First time I worked with a different editor, which is always experience. That's the other bit too. No matter what, you're going to get experience out of this as long as you take the right and any of your efforts, as long as you take the right attitude with it and understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and you're not working with somebody who's willing to take advantage of you in one form or another, then it's going to be mutually beneficial. And I think any of these collaborations should be that at the bare minimum. And if you're doing that, I think good will come from it in many different forms.
One thing that I've done is, my writing with Tsunami Squad is, I also go on their podcast and stuff, but I write history articles. I call them Tsunami History, where I'll choose a show and I'll go into, like a lot of historical stuff that I find and doing a lot of research and stuff. And so that's one way I've gotten my name out there is trying to get my name out a little bit more into different circles, is to work with, the Tsunami guys at Tsunami Squad, who are really great and have a really, really awesome platform. And so that's been is another thing you could do, is try writing nonfiction or as well.
Yeah, what I did, there was a website, I don't remember what it was called, that I submitted an article or two to a while back, and I did like 3 of those articles. One of them ended up being reprinted in the first Wikid magazine, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But different kinds of writing, exactly. Basically, it's just doing the work and making sure you're doing it for the right people at the right time in the right place, and that's way easier said than done. But work tends to lead towards benefit as long as you're very aware of what the work's doing, because a lot of people will work to death and then get screwed over, and that's no good either, and that's always a risk. But at the same time, you should diversify your creative capabilities and where your creations are landing as much as you feel is right, and whatever feels good for you, and hopefully that again provides a more solid and diverse footing for you. For me, I don't know. Most of my connections are from all over. I've tried to be very open to what the comic community is everywhere, and so that's both closed some doors and opened others, and it's just something I've had to accept and continue to grow and work out of and work through. And it's I keep saying it, but it's tough. It's tough work. Whatever you're doing in any creative field, if you're doing painting, if you're doing just novel writing, if you're doing any kind of art, it's a non-necessity, right, to survival. So there's certainly no guaranteed built base. So you've got to find a way to build one. And there's a lot of right ways to do it, and I'm sure there's quite a few wrong ways. And everybody's journey is going to be different.
No, that makes sense, man. I can appreciate that. So that's some good advice there, and answer some of your questions, Michael. And definitely is a good question, man. So, but yeah, we'll definitely be working to plug your books over the next year and however long. And I know you've got a lot of really great comics out already. I mean, you are among all of us. You might have the most issues out. Do you think that's right? Michael, are you there? Michael, are you there? Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I was worried. I was like, oh God, have I gone insane?
I believe you're right that Mike has produced the most comics, as far as I'm aware. I don't know about eBay. You're probably coming close, if not more
Maybe.
so.
Yeah. How many issues of
I'm known as
Decimators
the
did
most.
you do?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like only for Decimators, I think we're like issue 6 now. It's
No, we're on
6.
volume 6, my friend.
That's true. It's like issues themselves there were like I don't know, 6 pages, something like that. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's gonna
So
be
they were
like
kind of like mini issues. So we're
yeah,
kind of
because
technically we're kind of cheating. We're calling them volumes because we're
yeah,
compiling the issues, you know. But
yeah, because it's
eBay's right. They are kind of they're like 20 to 30 pages, right? So
yeah,
they're
yeah,
they're
because
they're
they were originally
issue
like
length.
web comics, so they weren't like really
Right, that's true. So if we're gonna
designed to be
go by
printed.
traditional comic standards, then about 6 issues for Decimator. To be fair,
There you go.
yeah, yeah. We're actually working on the 7th one right now.
Hmm.
We're gonna meet
Seventh
some.
already, huh? Like time flies
Yeah,
when you're having fun, man.
wild, isn't it?
Hmm.
I think we'll at least have probably 9, if not 10
Yeah, I think
issues
that's pretty
total,
close.
probably. Based on how
Yeah.
many more that we have left to print.
That's
Um,
probably my magnum opus. I never thought I could like put so much stuff in a comic book. Like I usually do short stories. They're now like making
mm.
hundreds of pages and just stretching it out,
And it's been such
coming
a
up with more
blast
characters.
working with you on it too, Ebi. Like being because I've been getting to kind of be the creative rapping. You could kind of say almost like
Oh,
I
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, like Ebi came up with this beautiful cover of and I should let's see if I can post it, but it's the one where it's got the caution symbol, you know.
Hmm.
It's got like the caution tape, and it's like what was it? Although the most politically incorrect comic of the 2010s, which I think we changed the 20. We changed it for our printing of it just because it's now we're not in the 2010s anymore.
Yeah, it's a 2020s, but yeah.
But what I'm getting at is it was like he created this motif, and then I decided every time we printed a new issue, I copied the motif and was able to expand on it and play with it and add little elements. And so I got to have some fun creating the like kind of insides, like where I would put different little things. Like one time it was like a nuclear symbol, or another time it was like
Yeah,
like
that
cracked
was a great
glass.
idea because it gave all the issues, all the covers, like some kind of like continuity to them. That like they
Yeah,
have like
totally.
this motive that yeah, it like really helped wrap the whole thing together. You know, it was like
Yeah, and I
pretty
was
good
really happy to
decision. I
be
really like
part of
it.
that, and
Mm.
I think your comic is so good, man. I love
Oh,
Decimator so
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's a great comic, man.
Well, it's a comic book that I decided to do just to piss people off. So I'm surprised that it got too far and I got that far. You
Oh my
know.
god, that's what's so great about it, I think too, is just because of the irreverence of it. It's part of why it's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a long and honorable tradition of like Spanish. How you call that? I guess it's satirical comic books because we've had
Hmm.
like a shitload of like our political cartoonists are like
Hmm.
next level.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
I mean,
great.
I can give you like a shit ton of names. You probably wouldn't
Oh
know any
wow.
of them because mostly Spanish exclusive. But I just wanted to be like them, and we live in such a
Wow.
like such a delicate times. You have to be so careful,
True, man.
like stepping on eggshells all the times. And I just wanted to like piss people off with that concept. Like, I'm gonna do a comic book about stuff that nobody wants to touch because they're too scared. Like I'm basically unemployed anyway. I was back when I was making Decimator, so I might as well, might as well.
And well, I think what makes your work so special and what made us want to have you be part of Wicked is that it isn't just over the top, or it isn't just like politically incorrect, so to speak. It's very smart, and it's very you've done it with a very pointed direction of saying this is a satire, and when you read it you realize how much layers you put into it and how smart it actually is, and so it really elevates it beyond just your typical, you run of the fair satire. Like it really feels like something special to me. So I
Thank you,
recognize that
thank
from
you.
the first issue, I think.
Yeah, I want it to
Um,
be like not just that's the thing. Like if you do a comic book that is like purely satirical, like it's like I'm not gonna say something like Airplane, but it kind of dates it because
mm,
Airplane it's a movie about like the movies that were made in the late 70s to early
mm,
80s.
mm,
Like
mm, mm,
they made fun of those tropes. So I just wanted to be like not just that, like wanted to like be able to stand the test of time and have like
mm.
relatable characters and like to the extent of my abilities, good writing, good
True.
dialogues.
That's
You
true.
know,
Like as you further get into it, the characters really start to come into their own and have relationships, and there's actually depth to the characters, that you don't get with a lot of their satirical takes on things. So yeah, no, it's really
I
good,
guess
man.
I'm that pretentious. I didn't want it to be just funny. I want it to be just a little more.
So yeah, man, we'll
Technically,
see.
you'd have to be trying to say you had knowledge that you didn't have to be pretentious. Yeah.
That's
You
it.
have
Hey,
the
you know-
knowledge. That's why you're able to do it. So it's not
I'm totally
pretentious.
stealing that. I'm totally stealing that
That's
from
a
you.
good
Hope you
one.
don't mind.
Yeah, it's only pretentious if I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's a given.
That's pretty funny, man.
Yeah, man, I miss writing. I haven't written anything in like since I began
Really?
to work like full time as an artist. I
Oh
haven't written
wow,
anything, not even a
wow.
like lousy short story. And I really
Mm.
miss it.
You should get back into it at some point. Maybe doing like even just like a one-off.
Yeah,
one
yeah. Now
little
that I
like
have more time,
2 page or
I've
something.
been I've been thinking of like I don't know, maybe writing creepy pastas or something like. But they've become like really popular in the last few years.
Mm.
You know, I gotta say that I have not had a whole lot of luck into like I most people know me as a horror guy,
Mhm.
as far as my comics go and whatnot. So when I've tried to do things other than what I'm known for,
Mm.
it wasn't all that. Like for instance, Dragon Girl Albino Warrior was a flat out
Mm.
wholesome family comic. Like anybody could really enjoy that or whatever. Compared to you'd probably have to be at least 17 to read most of my comics. That kind of an idea. I'm doing this sci-fi noir for Raincross Press. I'm wondering how that's going to be received. And people are like, wait a minute, so the horror guy did this, right? Like I'm just
The more you do it though, the more you can get your name out there and maybe diversify, as Cody said, diversify yourself a little, and who knows what the reception could be.
right. But how have you guys had reception with that when you've tried to do things outside of your normal wheelhouse?
Don't ask me,
I mean,
dog.
how well was that received? You know what I mean?
Don't ask me, man.
I don't know. I know my editor on Kill a Journal enjoyed it, and I'm not a horror guy like at all. And I was tasked with making a poignant slasher bit, so I tried to get the emotional resonance down because that was what I understood out of it. But the rest of it, like I needed notes and direction on. But he was happy to do that. And then I've written more like psychological horror as well, with one of the short stories I did for Ashcan Comics Publishing, which is going to be reprinted in issue 4 in the back because it fits with the whole Famine Inc. Theming of issue 4. But it's like I've written mostly like if somebody has contacted me for a gig, which has happened a couple times, it's mostly been for science fiction or Western, right? Says makes sense. Ape Fights was neither, which was nice. He was just like, here's the setup of this, and make something funny and entertaining with how this comic works, which is basically a page of setup and then a big splash of a punchline. And so that was fun to work just mostly in comedy because I try and
how
put.
did your fans take that though? When you went out of the sci-fi Western wheelhouse there and you did something else, how did fans receive that?
I don't know. Is the best way I can put it. Nobody said yes or no to it in any of these cases. Basically, the main folks that I got feedback from were those who were hiring me and working with me, right? So I do not know, but I don't think it was negative. Because again, I didn't hear about it. But it's tough to know. It's like trying to get feedback from folks unless you do something absolutely incredible and unexpected or something absolutely terrible and unexpected. It can be tough. It can be tough. Even
so we
with
just gotta
like
find a way to
reach.
make our comics either really great and unexpected or really terrible and unexpected.
And that's what I shot for with. So I did a release on Global Comics that was a combination of really bad poetry and artificial imagery, just to try it out because I've been nudging that. I've been poking that sore spot to see how angry people are going to get with it, which is fair. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go with it, but I wanted to poke it and see. And it's been getting good views on Global Comics. It's free, right? But it's been getting decent views. Almost caught up to issue 3 of Jack on there,
that's
which
wild.
has a paywall though, so that's the difference.
Still,
It's about
crazy.
a third 30. Yeah, it's about 1/30th of what the free issues have seen on that site. So to scale it, right? But for being something that I could throw together in 2 weeks and was very like, again, it was a mess. I was just trying to put that out there and see how folks reacted. It got better reception than I expected, which kind of is weird to me because of the whole everything about it. And so I was just trying to make something unsettling, so when you read it you got a little creeped out because both the imagery and then how the words are phrased. So I succeeded in that for my artistic goal, which is the first most important thing for me in any kind of creative endeavor. It should satisfy you, and then second, entertain other folks. I don't know, it looks like it did both, which is crazy to me, but yeah, yeah.
Can I just say, as a horror writer, the trick to making real good, truly scary horror is the writer themselves has to be terrified of what they're writing about.
Mhm.
There you go. Yeah, I could see
No,
that.
that's why Stephen King is a good horror writer, because he
Yeah.
gets scared really easy. He says so
He's a
himself. Like,
giant baby.
yeah, no, he says so himself.
I'm
Like,
just
he
kidding.
apparently was terrified of velociraptors after watching the first
Oh
Jurassic Park.
shit. Well, hey man, I
like,
would have been
it's-
too back then, dog.
Yeah, I mean,
Stephen King said it like one of those what do you call it? Like when they speak at a college or something like that. He said it one of those that somebody asked him, "So what scares you?" And he said everything.
You know, one time I saw this movie, it scared the hell out of me. I was the train was coming right at the screen, man. It was wild. I think it was the first movie ever made.
oh
I'm just-
no, they actually, the first
just kidding.
actual
Yeah,
movie
no,
they
it is
made,
really.
like in a cinematographer or like
Yeah.
a cinemascope. Yeah, it was like an actual train coming towards the camera,
People
and
were, like,
didn't know what it
scared.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
were, like,
people
they-
didn't know what
they,
it
like,
was.
back-
They thought that an actual train was coming towards them. They shut
I fucking
themselves.
love it.
Back then, they were really only familiar with pictures. That's why they're called
Mhm.
motion pictures.
Isn't
When
that
when
funny,
they
dude?
first saw a picture actually move, it freaked them out. Some people even thought it was like supernatural or something.
I'd love to do a horror movie, like based around like that or something, you know, where it's like where it's actually really is a supernatural element, where like the first films and, you know, the paranoia behind that. That's kind of a fun idea.
I remember John Carpenter making a short film for the Masters of Horror anthology about. I think it was like a snuff film that drew anyone who watched it insane because it
Oh,
was
shit.
so horrible. And turns out it was about some guys torturing an actual angel. So
Oh wow,
yeah, people.
that's pretty
people
good one.
Yeah, that's
Like in
awesome.
Preacher.
Yeah,
In
like
like
it
a-
was like it was an angel, and an angel is such a beautiful thing that a human being cannot bear the sight of it being tortured. So you just go insane and murder everybody around you. So it was
Oh,
like
shit.
this apocalyptic film that if you were to show
Whoa.
it at a festival or something, like you would cause the apocalypse.
You know,
It's an awesome idea. That's awesome.
It really is.
You they did something close to what you're
There you
talking
go.
about there, Mike, with Nosferatu. You remember the old black and white film Nosferatu?
Mhm.
I saw a film that was made about the making of that film. Like, it wasn't a documentary; it was about the people who made that film, and they played it like that guy who played
Oh,
the
yeah.
vampire was literally a vampire. He
That was,
literally was
yeah.
Nosferatu.
That was Shadow of the Vampire,
Is that?
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I think that was it.
And I think
Yeah,
it was
so-
John Malkovich playing Murnau, and what's
Yeah,
his name?
yeah.
Who played the Goblin in Spider-Man, playing Nosferatu the vampire.
Oh, Defoe. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
Defoe.
William
That's him. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
William
played the
Dafoe,
vampire.
yeah,
It was a great movie too.
They've also done stuff where writers will. I've seen a few variations of this story where a writer telling a story will bring it about in some sort of reality.
What? Say it again.
Where a writer telling a story, like he or she will be typing out a story or something like that, and
Mhm.
as they're typing it, even
Mhm.
or immediately afterwards, what they've written will actually happen.
That
Grant
also-
Morrison is a big one.
Oh.
He
Oh,
had a
wait.
whole speech about that too back in the day. So he was giving a speech to some anarchy convention back in like the early 90s, Grant Morrison. And he tries to teach him sigil magic and all that. But he talks about like that's what he would when he wrote a lot of the time he wanted in particular, there was a woman he wanted to meet, so he wrote about her into his comics at that time, and I forgot what set of comics he was writing then, but I don't think it was Animal Man. I think it was after Animal Man, but and that he met that woman and they dated for a while, and it was the relationship he wrote, and he also wrote his main character getting smashed to bits, and then weeks later that happened. I have some stories of that with my own work.
Wow.
Again, it's that ritual, it's that intent, and it's part of creation and just human consciousness, how it works, in my opinion. But it's a weird one, and it's a great storytelling trope as well. If you are to work that in.
Here's a theory that I like, and it's that the human brain is like a quantum computer, and what it's doing. It's actually just browsing all the possibilities in the multiverse. So every fictional story that you come up with is actually a possibility. Like, you cannot actually invent anything. You can only like browse the pre-existing possibilities of existence. So, I don't know. I remember a friend telling me. Yeah, I remember that friend telling me that I basically predicted 2020 with decimators. And I was like, "Holy shit, that's too, yeah."
I write some really fucked up stories. I really hope that shit doesn't start happening.
Well, it's like that idea from the new Doctor Strange movie where they're saying like every time you have a dream, it's a different multiverse, so like
it's
like,
basically
one where
that's
the clown's chasing me. It's like even that one.
That essentially would mean that there's a universe in which, like, Batman is real or the Lord of the Rings is real, in some part of the multiverse.
Old occultism calls it the Akashic records. It's the storehouse of all knowledge and possibility and reality, and that's part of what we can access as human beings. One of our burdens / gifts. And yeah, so I'm very impressed that it's become more and more mainstream, because again, this kind of stuff you were burnt for back in the day, right? It was outside thinking, but nowadays it's being injected into pop culture in so many different forms and different ways. The fact that even the Avengers movie, the latest Avengers movie, dealt with multiverse, not in the terms of, oh, we're going to a different timeline and then we'll just alter it and then we'll come back to ours and it'll be changed. No, it's a different branch. That took forever to become mainstream, and it's the only logical way any of that could work. And that always surprised me that they didn't do that until the Avengers. It's a trip how far this stuff has. I think a lot of it has to do with the internet. It's kind of almost a contemporary Akashic records that we can access on a whim during consciousness, which is crazy. But it's a heck of a lot of liberation and a lot of chaos and freedom, which means a lot of possibility, which I like, but some other folks it's terrifying, and with good reason. So I don't know what the future holds, but yeah, I'm going to keep making comics. That's for sure.
This is gonna buy a lot of ammunition and canned food using just.
Yes, there you go.
Building on kind of what Kanala said there. I lost it.
No,
Sorry about there. Damn. I had it. I was thinking about what Cody was saying there, and I lost the thought.
Maybe it'll come back to you.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Sometimes it comes back to me. I hope it'll hit you in a moment.
You just have to stop thinking about it, and it'll just come.
Yeah,
back.
Exactly. That's always the best way to do it, right? But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I believe the Akashic records, as you called it, right, Cody?
Mm-hmm.
That's that's something that we're gonna, maybe me and Matt might try and explore at some point in Project R.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different belief systems around that concept. Right? I'm just using a general concept. Tons of cultures have the same ideas. We'll see that many times, especially the older the culture is, the more general the ideas they explored were, or at least the shamans and priests and whatever kind of holy men, medicine men dealt with it. And so it's a trip and a half that, again, like I'm saying, that knowledge is making a resurgence. It makes sense. Again, I think once again, a lot of that's the internet, this liberation of knowledge. But
I also blame Joe Rogan, because he's the one who's like popularizing the concepts of flock errors.
That's where we got it from, I think, because Matt listens to Joe Rogan Experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, me, I just grabbed a bunch of old library, digital files. So for me, it was the internet. It was digital files, right? And I guess technically for Joe Rogan, right, it would also be the internet.
I'm sure.
It is the core of it. So it was that spark. And however it's communicated, that's important. But the other thing is to
very
go
interesting.
a little bit further into
Do your own research, maybe.
how long it's been. Yeah, please, because
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
the knowledge that needs to find you will find you if you're looking for
Mm.
it. Otherwise, other types will find you, and you might not be
Mhm,
looking
mhm.
for them, and then it's a little less fun. Let's just say.
So that thing I was going to mention, when
There we
I
go.
first heard about the multiverse theory, they were talking about it being there's this idea that our minds actually create the reality around us,
Mhm,
and based on that kind of thinking, they were saying that every time we make a choice, a universe divides in two. What one choice you made takes a universe in another direction, and the choice you made takes you in the universe you're on. But every time we make a choice, it divides it and creates yet another universe.
mhm.
That would mean that the human consciousness is actually the most important thing in the universe.
And
Because
that's exactly what it means. Yes.
that's, I mean, yeah, I reached that conclusion because I'm such an egomaniac, but apparently, yeah, I mean, the whole like double slit experiment. I'm sure you find gentlemen have
Yep.
heard about it. That's what it actually would prove, right? Like if
It
the
would.
human observer is like actually the most important thing because it is actually our perception that turns like waves into particles. So
Well,
the whole
Or vice versa. But
or
yeah,
vice versa.
the other bit too. So if you follow that line of research a little bit further, one of the bits I found attached to it is that so you feel pain instantaneously, even though there should be microseconds in between the neuron firing, the nerve firing, and your brain hitting it. But your brain, with studies, your brain hits it exactly the time that happens. So your brain is possibly reaching microseconds into the future at all times. And if that's true, then it could be, and the human consciousness could be scanning these almost infinite amount of possibilities and then making the choice at the time you make it to unfold. And again, it depends on
Strange shit.
a lot of beliefs in between the soul and consciousness, right? The difference. And so for me, it's a teaching mechanism. You're finding the paths that you're supposed to grow as a human being. For others, they might not see it that way. So it's what's the best way to put it? It's complicated, and it's most all of it is faith based, even if you dive into the science. And that's why, again, Einstein, once he got that far, he's like, God doesn't play with dice. He's like, no, this isn't how it works. Even though mathematically that's what he was shown, he just did not want to recognize that because it just didn't resonate with his belief system. Then you can get into psychology, right? And then you study Jung and how he brought himself back from insanity, and during his period of insanity, his records of it, schizophrenia, and how that works. All of this stuff, again, for me, it's learning experience, and particularly in the form of empathy. That's the number one thing that I drag out of almost all my human experience is trying to divide the ego trip from the actual experience, because they're both very true. And if you do take it as the person being, the consciousness being the most important thing in the universe, I think mechanically that's quite possible, but it might also be serving something, in which case that something that's serving is that most important thing. And I don't know how much that is. I don't know if it's entirety. I think it's, you think fourth dimension, you think fifth dimension, things weaving in and out geometrically. It's a lot. I spent a lot of my youth and a lot of this time doing that, and my art helps explore these concepts. Again, the concept of Jack Irons being many people at once is one of those bits. And so it's something I'm very curious in, very I spent a lot of time diving into it, but at the same time, all I've gained is being humble about it, because it is just so much, and it hits on so many very tender and very personal spots for people that I think it really is important for a personal bit. And then if you resonate with somebody, you speak about it, you grow and you learn from each other. But at the end of the day, that's kind of where I stand on the level of insanity of the makeup of moment to moment, right?
Even from a philosophical standpoint, they're still talking about observable facts. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, when we're talking about how do you how do you know what reality is? Your senses tell you what you see, what you smell, what you feel, everything. Your reality is a composition of feelings and impulses and signals that you're getting that your brain is interpreting. Then you add into the thing. Then you add into the thing where Canales was talking about with the slit experiment. Light clearly changes based upon observation. In one way it's a particle, in one way it's a wave.
Michael, have you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky?
Yes.
Great film.
It's actually based on a Spanish movie.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It explores a lot of those ideas of reality and what's real and what isn't. I watched it in a philosophy class I took in college. It was called Philosophy and Films, and we explored those ideas that you're talking about right now. And I've always found them very fascinating.
It's philosophy of films like I could rent or something.
I don't think so. But there may be books like that out there, though, to be honest with you. But it was a course, and they did. He had selected a bunch of films, and then we would go over philosophy books, related to them, and it was quite interesting. Quite an interesting course. Yeah, Vanilla Sky though was a standout for me. I remember that one the most. Oh, we also watched Memento.
Oh yeah.
You guys watched In the Mouth of Madness, also by John Carpenter?
No, I was gonna ask you earlier when we were talking about horror movies if I should watch it though.
Yeah, well, I think it's really relevant to what we're talking about because it gives you a very simple but effective definition of what reality is, and reality is consensus. Like reality is what the vast majority of the people believe it is.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
If you make the vast majority of people believe something else, then reality changes. And that's a really creepy concept. Like if you used to
well, you notice it basically consistently these days, and that's how governments have operated since time immemorial. That's how the shaman used to operate back in the day. It was to give people faith in something so that it could be guided, so that people can be cohesive when we are naturally individualistic. And it's gone a lot of different places over time, that's for sure. But again, nowadays there's a weird mix of self-liberation and societal governance is the best way to put it. And it's a unique struggle, and a lot of the best art comes out of recognizing and exploring those struggles.
Is it?
No,
there's a creature that actually, if everybody that I've seen this on Supernatural a couple of times. I've seen it, I think, in a movie too. There's a certain type of creature where if everybody believes in something enough, it actually comes to existence.
Yeah, I think that's a tulpa.
A tulpa, that's it. Yes.
Yeah. That's I think that's a Tibetan concept. Like that the tribe concentrates on an idea and they make it real.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really trippy concept.
Yeah, in modern culture, a lot of times that's what we've reduced the old gods to, is tulpas, concepts that still believe in that they're kept alive by that, and that's you can do power scales off of that. There's a lot of fun, again, ways to explore those kind of ideas, and I've seen a lot of different takes on them. And I've enjoyed quite a few of them. Again, some of the best art comes out of these. What Lovecraft would have put it on the completely incomprehensible, that which cannot be understood. A lot of it comes out of that, and a lot of positivity can come out of that. Lovecraft focused on this is terrifying because there's no way to bridge that gap. It is literally anathema to existence and to consciousness. That's what this being is, and that's one of his best contributions to modern thought overall. Is making that concept accessible outside of philosophical circles or anybody who wanted to. And even then, people didn't really like to think about that because it's inactionable. You can't think about it. So it's again, it's just they're great thoughts that have manifested amazing artwork that enriches the soul, in my opinion. And that's one of those thoughts.
I heard somebody say recently that you cannot talk about a thing as if it doesn't exist. To talk about the thing makes it exist.
That's a good point.
And that's what he was trying to do. Is he was trying, like, I can talk about it, but I need to convey this idea that it can't be talked about.
Guys, I'm afraid I'll have to drop out because it's almost dinner time here at Chick Alice. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, man. I appreciate it. It's been so good seeing you, man. Is there anything you want to plug or anything like that before you go?
Well, I'm currently working on Gentleman's Guild, an indie comic, soon to be on Indiegogo, I hope, for Derek Fury.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah, it's slightly reminiscent of that other comic that I made called Johnny's Law. It's like a martial arts noir story. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be fun,
it's
man.
made by two martial arts experts who are this Derek Fury person and myself. So I hope that will somehow enrich the experience of reading this comic.
Oh, nice. Excellent, man. Well, we're looking forward to that, dude. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
Thank you. I'll keep you guys posted. Thanks for having me.
Live long and prosper.
You're welcome, man. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
And then there were 3.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Triangle, bitch.
Well, it's funny. Both Matts were supposed to be here, and both of them had tech issues.
Oh, is that because I did see Sulos pop up? And then,
yeah, he kept trying to get in. He said he couldn't hear any of us.
Oh, odd. Man. Sometimes, so what I've noticed when I even just take a week break, particularly if I take over a week break from any of this podcast or whatever, there's some technical or software thing that pops up almost every time, and so the first half hour is like willing it to work again. Like that's a lot for me. I've noticed that's pretty much a law at this point. If I take too long of a break, something's going to be busted, and it's going to take a good half hour to an hour to resolve. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens elsewhere as well.
Well, I imagine. Well, also, Matt. I know for at least Matt B, he's on his phone at the moment. Yeah. I don't think the streamer works very well with the phone.
It doesn't. Steve sometimes uses his tablet, like when we're playing D&D and stuff, and it totally crackles and whatnot. It cuts in and out.
Yeah,
you really gotta have something hard lined, I think.
Not only that, but there's really weird little tweet. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. But the real weird things about it, like you have to stay on the page active on your browser. So if you turn your screen off, everyone gets cut off and dies. If you try to go to a different app or something, you lose everybody. You can't hear everybody. That you get disconnected.
So I tried to jump in on a Twitter Space recently, and that's only really usable on phone if you're going to speak. And man, it was a nightmare. I hated every second.
Was it really?
And that was through phone, so I could see how that might be consistent with this as well, because it's like it's a thing within another app, right? So in this case, it would be within a browser for StreamYard here, but like within that other one, it was within Twitter, and I thought, it should work. And, like it would double my voice, like so. When I was put on a speaker role, it would maybe put me into another room where I could speak and hear everybody, but the other room was still running, and it wasn't like a separate app I could close or anything. So everybody was doubled and like a second behind. So it was unlistenable.
That's awful, man.
It's like, I ended up I just connected with somebody in there to ask my question, and that worked fine. But I've seen a lot of people have plenty of luck with Space. So it could just be me being a tech boomer, right? I have no idea.
That reminds me, Mike. I have something I wanted to. I don't know if it's appropriate on the show. I might need to talk to you about it afterwards, but I don't want to forget. I can help you out with the intro for the episodes there.
What do you mean? Did it not go well?
It could go better, is what I'm saying.
Really? Okay, sounds good.
There's actually a way. There's actually, and I don't know if you have to subscribe to actually
Probably.
get this service, but there's actually a way you can upload the video and it'll just
Okay,
play
that'd
full
be cool.
screen on there, and
Another
then go
reason
right
to
back
upgrade,
to
man.
us. It
be
automatically
dope,
mutes
yeah.
the mics and everything.
The one problem is and I'm gonna play the second half of the video after we end the podcast, but and I need to find a better way to do it. But the version I was using is the one that Laguna Munta uploaded to, I believe, his YouTube channel, and so it has both the intro and the outro included. So I had to stop it halfway through, but maybe we
Oh,
can figure out a way to
Well,
split it up.
that's an
I have the
easier
MP3
fix.
audios because I have the
Okay.
MP3 files. Yeah.
So yeah, either the MP3 or that, right? You just download the video, and then
Mhm.
just put it into some freeware. That's a video editor, which I've used a bunch of
True.
different. I recommend Shotcut, but because it's free and it's got everything like
Really?
you can need
I'll
to
have to write
start
that one down.
learning video editing. That's what I
That's cool,
started on,
man.
and then eventually, Dollar Coins got me something that's more user friendly, and I've been using that. It's the Mojave line, or Movavi, excuse me, which I use Pickverse for my like edits, small image edits, and then I use what's it called, Slideshow, I think it's called, for the trailers and all that I've done.
Oh, nice. dude.
Super user friendly.
That's
But
cool.
but Shotcut, like if you just need to split something into two files, like audio or video, you can do it there. Audacity, if you're just doing audio, super great tool. You just find your point, you want it, you mark it, you delete the rest, you save it, and then you do it again on the other half. It's a very simple process. But yeah, that would if you're not going to use OBS, you're going to use StreamYard. I would assume they are going to charge you for the upload the video thing, just because of space, right? But that's a great way to do it too, and you could probably have both set up. Otherwise, you could do like a screen share and use like VLC or any media player, right, to play it. And it sounded interesting. We did hear it because I heard the intro. I know you were kind of curious if we'd hear it or not.
Oh, really? You heard it?
I did hear it, and it did sound almost like it was coming from a phone for
Weird.
me.
I
But I
wonder
don't know
why.
if that was everybody's experience.
The sound was pretty low. The sound was pretty low.
Was it
and
maybe the
didn't-
volume issue?
It didn't feel like
potentially?
it was really a great. It didn't feel like it was really a great quality. Like it felt
It's
muffled
great.
a little.
Yeah, there we go.
Like when I listen to it on my end, it sounds really great.
See,
Interesting.
that's I think that's the thing though. It's not translating over when
It's
you're
not.
watching the video. I've noticed on StreamYard in general, when you try to share a video on there,
Mhm.
it doesn't sound as good.
I've noticed that with
wow.
my
Really?
trailers too. When other people are
Yeah.
sharing them through
Oh,
there,
no.
you're right. They
Oh.
probably throttle the quality or the bit rate to allow
Yeah.
more space on their servers, right? It's probably just they probably
They
just
gotta
lower the
fix that,
quality.
dog.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
unfortunate.
I've even heard it. I was on one podcast once where they were playing the trailer for, I think it was Dragon Girl Albino Warrior, and the audio in the video weren't in sync when they played it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm guessing that's
Wow.
server side. Then they're just being cheap.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out a better way around that. Yeah, for sure. Because that's not cool.
Yeah, if people have time, I recommend learning OBS. It's free, and you can do all these tricks with it. You just got to take the time and figure it out.
Mhm.
Upload files, set it up. I have a ton. Again, I love the creative end of streaming far more than actually doing it. And I've had a blast setting up my stream
That's
setup
cool,
through OBS, and all of it was free except for the art assets and all those things that I've had as a comic book creator anyway, and that kind of stuff. So I totally recommend it. It's a lot of fun. If tech isn't your bag though, StreamYard is a great solution that I've been using with you folks for years at this point.
Yeah, really.
And so it does it, but if you want bells and whistles and all of that,
we used to
then
just
learning
do. What did we
OBS is
used to
kind of
do?
easy.
We used to do.
It was
It's been
Hangouts,
so
right?
long. Oh, Hangouts. That's right. I
Yeah,
forgot
Google
what it was,
Hangouts
dude.
for a while, and I
Damn, I
don't even
forgot about
know.
that.
I don't
They
even
don't do that
remember
anymore.
how much better it was in terms of like sharing stuff. But I don't
Honestly, it
remember as
felt
much
same.
of a problem.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
Oh,
Well, I don't
maybe it was
remember.
better.
So that's
Right,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
maybe
the
it was
thing.
better. Maybe it was worse. I don't remember.
I
Probably
think
the
one thing
same.
that really works cool, and I don't know if you can do this with OBS. I'm not familiar with it, so I'm
Oh,
not
probably
trying to
can.
say that it doesn't work with that. But one thing I like about StreamYard is the ability to stream to different platforms at once.
So I use Restream for that service. So yeah, you can do it through OBS. I'm sure there's other services besides Restream. I used to be able to, and they redid Restream because too many people were, I guess, taking advantage of its free capabilities. But it's also free. You just sign up for it, and you can stream to 2 platforms at once. Now it used to be up to 5, and so I'd stream to Twitter, I'd stream to Twitch, I'd stream to YouTube, and then I was actually streaming to Steam for a while too when I was doing gameplay stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
But you can get on all of those platforms. I don't know how much it is a month if you want to do like the unlimited services. Right now, I had to prioritize, so it's just Twitch and
If
YouTube.
I can say, Michael, OBS, from what I understand, is pretty much like the industry standard. That's like what most professional operations are using these days.
Right.
So. Yeah, and there's Streamlabs OBS, which is what my editor uses when he does his stuff, and it's more streamlined, right? You don't have all the bells and whistles, but at the same time, it's great. Everything's like direct and in front of you, and you know what you're doing. A lot easier than regular OBS, but even regular OBS. I don't know. I've always been, and why I'm a PC gamer and just like a big fan of tech is I like customization. I like having so much control over things. And so when I have that control and I want to do something, I really enjoy diving into figuring out how to get it done. And that's been with my comic book work as well, right? Just trying to figure out how to get things done. That my brain loves that. It's super like a huge a mess of endorphins, right? When I do, and it's got the drive to figure it out. Yeah, I mean, there's straightforward ways to do it. I do recommend, though, because it's freeware. It was one of those gifts to people. Streamlabs OBS, I think, has paid options, and they have more like tutorials and stuff. But even then, just look up OBS on YouTube when you want to do something, and somebody will walk you through it. It's one of the wonderful gifts of the internet. It's how I've been able to do any of my work, is that usually somebody's been kind enough to lend the time to show you how to do something. It's really cool.
But yeah, I'm the opposite. Like I stream. I like how easy StreamYards is for me to be able to just get on and get what I need to get done, and I can schedule the episodes. I can upload my picture, put a description, and it just automatically creates it on YouTube. I don't have to do any of the work. It's nice
I like
for me.
it. I like it a lot too, and I don't feel like I think maybe you and I are a little different in Cody in this respect, in that I don't need quite as much control over what's going on, and I actually feel like with StreamYard that I got as much control as I want over the situation.
I mean,
and
you
I
do have the
do what I
premium
want
version,
with it.
so.
Yeah,
there you go.
The premium version.
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking about upgrading to the premium version. One thing is, you see the Powered by StreamYard. I'd love to replace that with a nice little Wikid logo, which you can do with the premium version, and we can get better branding on here, so it makes it look more Wikidy, and you have more options. And
you know what else is cool is, you see how we got the black screen going on behind us here? Like on with Omen and with D&D and with Countless Corpses, I put up special backgrounds.
That's cool.
The Countless Corpses podcast, it's just a pile of skulls on the back. You know what I mean?
That's funny. No, that'd be cool, man. I'd love to put like a background here and play around with it a little bit. So I might check that out this week.
I can also help you out with editing on Anchor. I'm actually getting pretty good with editing, both on YouTube and on Anchor.
Okay, nice, man. Well, yeah, I might have to hit you up for that too as well. I'll be getting those ready for transferring over to some new platforms. That'll be good, man. Get the podcast out there more. And so, yeah, speaking of which, I was hoping maybe to go back to like actual, before we had a bi-weekly schedule. I think is the right term for it. There's it's either bi-weekly or semi-weekly. I can't remember.
I think both work.
Okay. I'd actually try and do a weekly schedule. I think nobody has to make it if they don't want to. I want it to be a thing where people can make it if they can, and people, if they can't, they can't. Right. I think a more consistent schedule might work.
If we can keep it at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Saturdays, I can make it all but one Saturday out of the month. We record our Patreon only episode for ORP on the first Saturday of the month.
Okay.
But as a general rule, I can make it to this most of the time besides that one day.
And then that'd be awesome, man. I appreciate that. And I also had the idea that, like, if for whatever reason, say there's a holiday or something, we could also, start doing pre-recorded episodes that we can then, because StreamYard now you can essentially set a pre-recorded video to go live at a certain time, and so we could essentially keep it the way it is, where people can watch it live if they want to, but it would be a live pre-recorded episode essentially. And so those kind of things we can do to make sure, let's say
I think the only way you could do that, to my knowledge, you can record an episode, you can download it, and then you can upload it onto something.
No, it's a brand new feature. I just saw it as I was coming into the stream today. It asked me if I wanted to upload a pre-recorded video to play live.
Well, that's what I mean. You'd have to have a pre-recorded video.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we would. That's what I'm saying. So let's say like there's a Christmas holiday coming up on the weekend, and or something like that.
Right.
We can't do the episode. We would meet during the week ahead of time, record the episode, have it ready, and then that weekend we could hit it live, so people could still have their regularly scheduled Wicked podcast, but it just wouldn't be technically a live episode. It would be a pre-recorded episode instead.
I just don't know how to do that from StreamYard.
I
know how to schedule stuff on YouTube. I know how to schedule stuff on Anchor. But it all involves having to upload stuff onto there.
So if you were gonna pre-record again, OBS, it has the recording option.
No.
So you would.
Yeah, I think you guys are just not following exactly. It's built into StreamYard.
I got it to upload it, but you got to have the file, which is what Mike's saying, and to have the file,
right, you use StreamYard to record it, because you can record video without going live on any platform. Then we'll have that ready because it's just a matter of scheduling, right? It's just saying, like, we can't do it on Saturday.
Records. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, they have that as a feature now too.
Got it.
That's how we do all of our episodes, actually. Because we're able to I record all the stuff on here besides what live streams on other stuff, like for the podcast. I got to download the audio only track and then put it on Anchor.
Now, here's a cool feature, Michael, you might not be aware of it. As far as I know, it's brand new. I just saw it today. They're offering 2 hours a month for the free, but I believe they have unlimited for the upgrade, the plan you have, which is that you can now.
It's not.
You can now. No, you can now, and it is unlimited for this feature. You can now record separate audio tracks. So
I saw that, but this was the thing. At first, when I first heard that, I was like, you know what? There's a couple of people I play D&D with that got shitty connections. This would be awesome. And then I realized that they actually record them as separate tracks, which means that I have to edit them all together afterwards, and I ain't even trying that.
Yeah, that does sound like a pain in the ass, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It sounded really good at first. I liked the idea of having that clear you get that clear recording from everybody regardless of the bad connection. I was like, yeah, I love it. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
It could be worth it if you have like chronic issues with it, I suppose, but hopefully you can get that fixed, right?
Well, let me give you an idea. I do say like
Adios,
amigo.
Say like I do a 2-hour episode. It usually takes me somewhere around 3 or 4 hours to edit that.
Damn.
So if you're talking about putting individual tracks for each of the people on there and then putting that together, you're talking about it'd be the next day before I'm done.
Damn. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So just consider that.
Fun stuff.
I really enjoy editing when I get a chance to.
Huh.
Oh yeah, no, I do. I've done multi-hour streams while I edit. That's another thing I like to do is stream it, because a lot of times I like accountability. Otherwise, I find other things to do, and so that's a big one. So I'll just zone out and do that for hours. The 10-second trailer can take 3 hours sometimes. Depends on what I'm going for and the quality of production, right? But I really I can that kind of busy work I can sit down and just dive at. I was doing the lettering script for Jack 4. Last week before, at least the first draft of it. And it was tough until I was like, I just threw on a couple concerts in a row, and I sat there, and that's what I did to hold myself accountable. So it's when I like creative, busy work, as long as at the end there's a tangible product. If I'm just doing like a part of it, like editing in terms of like actual writing editing, and then I got to wait for somebody else to get back with a final version from those editing notes, it's a little rougher for me to do it because it's not the, I'd say instant, but this is hours, right? Gratification. And so it's different. But when it's a task that I can sit down and accomplish, then I'm happy to do it. That's the same thing. If there's something I want, I am more than willing to put in the work as long as like it will get finished. Otherwise, yeah, I have a very, very tough time. So with like editing videos, or I've done a little bit of music production as well, like that's fine. I can do that because there's a tangible end goal. Again, the lettering script or with any kind of writing, usually I do a draft in, I can't stop. Like it's very hard for me to get into a flow mindset, and then if I can't complete it within that flow mindset, then it's probably wasn't going to be started. Yeah, exactly. So when I can get that in whatever form it is, whatever kind of, playing music or again recording or doing a stream or whatever, as long as there's a tangible end goal, that allows me to get in the flow state. And if I'm in the flow state, then I'm going to finish it, whether or not that's the best way to go about it. A lot of people, it's a lot better to do chunks, right, and build the top of it. It's why I couldn't do I can't do like long form prose writing because I would literally have to stay, I'd have to stay up for like 24 hours to finish, something, and I can
which is
do that.
impossible to do a novel in that amount of time, really.
Exactly. Well, yeah, in about 48 or whatever, Stephen King did Cujo, right, and he had a lot of quote unquote help. It was over a weekend, and he doesn't remember writing it because he had quote unquote help. Let's just say he was coked out of his mind. Yeah. And so that's why he doesn't even remember. He just had a manuscript at the Monday afterwards to give to his editor, right?
That's so wild.
So it's 100% doable, and there's tons of artists who work like that. They'll do this massive Herculean physical and mental effort once in a blue, get something done, and then they're done. But Stephen King is a master of writing in so many different ways. He can do that, or he can do a long form, or he can do it over. He can do the Dark Tower over 30 years, right? Like it doesn't really matter to him. He can do any of those, and that's what makes him a prolific artist and writer. But for me, like I could try it, but at the end of the day, like what I spit out is probably going to be junk. Like Cujo's not his best work, but it's still better than anything I'd probably put out, right?
It took me 4 years to write my novel.
Yeah, exactly. And some people, they could be doing it for a decade. I mean, how long has R.R. Martin been working on trying to finish that, right?
Yeah, really.
And he's actually got the money and the fans waiting for it.
Trip, dude, that's a trip, bro. If I had money and fans waiting for me, hey, ain't no way I'm waiting.
I guess I view the types of editing differently. For me, editing video or audio got fun once I figured out all the mechanics.
That's true. I can see that, man.
Right. Editing comics can at times be tedious for me.
Really?
Like it really kind of depends. I'm usually good for editing it on the first couple of passes, but like there was one issue we did where I think we went through like 6 or 7 drafts on this script.
Whoa.
And by the 5th time I was like, oh my god, I gotta read it again.
Whoa. That's wild, man. Yeah,
some of that was alleviated by my musician experience, right? Just playing the same thing again and again and again and again and again, depending on the difficulty, right? Was that kind of showed me, again, if there's an end goal, then usually I can do the tedium. Usually, but it has to be the right time too. Like I could have and probably should have had this lettering script like done, at least this draft of it, weeks and weeks ago. But I had to find the right day to actually be able to have that and to find the space and time to put
now,
that.
Let me
that
ask
could
you,
be just as difficult.
When you say lettering script, do you write an actual another script?
Yes.
Lettering? What you really?
Yes. So what I do, this is what allows me not to worry so much about the the original script that goes to the artist, right? So I don't have to do about 6 or 7 till it's done. I do maybe 2 or 3. I try and make sure that the ideas are the ideas and pacing. That's my goal with the first script, is ideas and pacing are communicated clearly, that the moments are big and bright, and that everything's doing what it's supposed to. Then it goes to Maxie, and he's going to have the artistic and creative freedom to play around with that. And since he does, then I have to do a script to the finalized art. To make sure that everything gels cohesively, and so I can improve on my original writing. Because again, that's usually, it's not a mess. It's totally readable. It's good in my opinion, but it's not good as his art. And that's what I'm struggling with right now, is this original lettering script. Like I had to cheat in a couple ways to get through it when I was working. I used more quotations to at least put the idea on the page, so that I can go with a second draft and try and communicate that through my own words a bit better. And that's why, Dollar Coins, he tore it apart, which he deservedly should have. So that's what I got to do, is I got to sit down and get a second draft. But like, even getting to that first lettering script, like I wanted to start the lettering script as pages were coming in. I just couldn't. It was terribly intimidating because of how good the pages were that were coming in. And it's still terribly intimidating. But now that I have something to work off of, a framework, an idea, an outline, now I can play with the pieces. But yeah, that's the bit. As I even since issue number 1, I do another script off of Maxie's art so that everything flows better, and so that the time that he worked within the paneling and the gutters and just the pacing that he worked very hard to get right for the art is upheld with the writing. And that's very tough. It can be, there was a lot of this issue where I just completely cut my writing, because I was just like, I don't need to say anything now. He just did everything. And there's some places where it's like, I need to say something, but I didn't know what to say. So I just put something there that conveys the idea I want later for the second draft. But the other bit that the lettering script helps with, which is what I did first, is because I was trying to letter the comic when I did issue number 1. I'm a terrible letterer. I just do it. Trying to again get that lettering flow, so it gives Vince, our wonderful letterer, a bit of an idea of how to place it. But again, I want him to have the freedom, because he's the letterer. He knows what he's doing better than I do. That's why he's getting a paycheck. Otherwise, I'd be and so that's the bit too, is that now I have colors coming in, and it's gorgeous pages, and it's super intimidating because I'm working with consummate professional artists who put out amazing work, and I'm just that imposter syndrome is very hard to get over for sometimes, and trying not to ruin what they accomplished is super intimidating. And so I've heard this from a bunch of different artists. Usually and this was true with the lettering script for me, is that first brush stroke is often the toughest. Trying the blank canvas is super intimidating. In this case, the canvas isn't blank. I'm trying to do something on top of it, so it's even more.
Well, that's why I just wash my hands clean. I just hand the script to my letter, and he's like, "Go at it, buddy."
Well, if that works, I mean, whatever works for folks. For me, it's so much time in like that's probably the better way to reduce production times. Like I'm adding this extra step, right?
But you're doing it because you care, right? You do because you have a very specific vision that you want to see done.
Yes, and that vision shifts as it goes through different people's interpretations, right? And I want to make sure that's cohesive and still communicates. Yes, and that's why I do it that way. But it does add time to the production, and you don't really want to do that. I know many of the folks who work on monthly schedules and things like that. They could not afford to be able to work this way. They would need a complete finished script. The art comes in as the pages coming in, they're getting colored. As the colors are coming in, they're getting lettered, and that's all happening within, say, a month.
And then think about how manga does it even faster.
Yes. And so they have the name, right, or the name, however it's pronounced, the storyboard. They present that to the editor. The editor edits it, and then the script is finalized, and then the assistants and the mangaka get to work. And by the time they're done, it's done, right?
then
And that
and then the
allows them
next
to
one's
do
already
that in
probably
a
ready
week.
for
Yes.
them.
Yeah, the storyboard's already going while the assistants are doing the backgrounds and the cleanups and the inkings
Yeah,
and whatever
You
needs to
know,
be done.
you know what is
Crazy.
crazy is I've actually talked to several different writers about their process, and like I'm listening to you, Cody, right now, and
Uh,
I don't work anywhere near like this.
yes.
I'm sure that like me and Steve work differently
Yes.
when we're writing. I'm sure that Michael probably works differently when he's writing too. There's no standard. This is how you write comics. Everybody's
Yeah.
got their own process. Everybody's got their own way to do it.
Yeah, and that's my favorite bit about this medium almost entirely is that there's just a way to make this unique storytelling art that can tell stories that novels can't, that film can't, that all these different things can't do it. It's ground level, it's dirty, but it is so free. I love it so much. From my editing experience, I've never seen two comic scripts that are set up the same way. From looking at professional scripts, like how Alan Moore basically writes the artist a novel. Whereas, I do a line and panel setups. I've seen another person who does it in borders and boundaries. I forgot what's called in a table. He does it in tables in Microsoft Word to change the paneling and all of that to make it simple. It's wonderful to see how many different ways that comics get made, and it still is part of the same medium, same part of expression. You still know how to interact with it the same way. You know how to understand it. It's really cool. I love comics for that so much.
And it's so intuitive, right? Like anybody who knows how to write can pick up and really, if you can work with, even if you don't have art skills, you can work with an artist. So like it's a very inviting medium.
Yes. Yes, I agree 100%. It's intimidating, right? And finding success even more so, but
Oh,
it is super
definitely.
inviting if you just want to tell a story in pictures and words instead of just words.
And that was always my thing
Then
is
it's great.
always, I wanted to write just so I can get my stories out there. We started Wikid so that we can help other people tell their stories. And so that's always been the core of what we do. Yeah.
No.
Right.
But yeah, it's a fun medium, man. It really is. It really is cool.
I kind of view comics, and I don't know if you guys think about it the same way, but Cody said something that kind of reminded me of this there. Uh, you know, you talked about what you can do in prose and what you can do in film. And I kind of personally view comics as the bridge between the two mediums, where it is able to take you someplace that prose can't go and someplace that film can't go, but yet it is somehow in the middle of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no, I totally agree. The other bit is again budget. Like my work in particular is kind of high budget, but for comics, but it's very 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 low budget crap for film, right?
Yeah.
And it's ridiculously high budget for prose, and so it's got that accessibility to it. Well, I mean, you just need
I didn't think about that.
For prose.
Well,
right?
shit, I spent way too much on my novel because I got art.
Well, it depends. Exactly. It depends on what you're doing. Cover depends nowadays with I totally foresee AI art taking over commercial artwork like very quickly.
Oh,
but
God.
that's a whole nother argument.
That's a whole nother bag of worms.
but particularly for novels where you just need the one image, and then you just hire an artist to paint over it, right? Like that's going to be very, very quickly. I'm in fact working with an artist who that's what he's doing now and allows him to do about 3 times the amount of work in the same amount of time.
Yeah,
I can get behind the idea of using the AI work as a base.
Yes, that's where I'm going to.
Yeah, okay.
No, that's what I did too. And except again, I did that middle finger just poking the sore spot with my other bit because it is full AI except for what the craziness I wrote in the poetry.
Well, can I talk real quick, Cody? You inspired me, and I'm actually gonna. I just started. While we were speaking, I'm gonna go ahead and keep working on after. But you inspired me to write. And we had that meeting a couple weeks ago. You inspired me to do a little short story. I'm gonna post online for free. Which is
nice.
It starts off with I found an AI story generator. And the prompt is it's a first-person short story where the guy's implanted a chip into his brain. It's an AI chip that was supposedly help him write better by coming up with new and unexpected plot twists. But he starts to lose control and he can't control his own thoughts, and his own life starts to unravel because the AI is taking control. And So I thought I'd actually use an AI generator to write parts of the story and then write my own parts and then go back and forth
Yep,
and see
exactly.
where that would take me and have some fun with it. Like, yeah.
That's the number one thing, is if people are having fun and they're not using it maliciously, lying about it, for instance, and they're not. My biggest problem has been, and I'm very guilty of it because it's a lot of fun, is basically necromancy, right? Resurrecting the dead in terms of fake imitation imagery. That one I have some moral quandaries with, and that's why I'm exploring it. But at the same time, I think it is a wonderful tool if used properly, and people who are going to refuse to use it are going to have their own niche, and they're still going to survive and be able to do it. But in terms of, if you're looking at it at cold, hard money and time from a corporate standpoint, I do not see why they wouldn't utilize it to really dark levels, right? In terms of how artists can get it, trading cards, novel covers, postcards, that kind of market where a lot of people made their bones as artists because it was consistent work. That's going to be much tougher if you're not willing to understand and adapt to this, depending on how the courts continue to rule. So in Europe, as long as you're doing the paint over, it's totally fine to sell it. Whereas the US, it's still very morally gray and hasn't been kicked up through enough courts. One court, somebody wanted to, they were trying to sell an image that used an art style from a past artist, and that artist's family sued, and I believe they won. So again, there's no legislation to base it, but that was a what do you call it? A precedent for how the U.S. might handle it differently. But we're also very money hungry society, and this is a lot of potential. So I have no idea how it'll actually shake out. But in the next few years, particularly if some people get like, if the AI gets very good at what it's doing, instead of being kind of like, oh, well, that looks cool, it's a good idea, but I need to fix it. If it gets past that point, then that's where things are going to get tough. But it's also, you still have to properly license it and disclose it if possible, all of these things. And I think there's a lot of potential for chaos with it in terms of like people doing really stupid things.
What I will say though is no matter how good AI gets, it will never feel as good as paying your artist and seeing how happy you're making them by providing
not at all. That's the bit. Like that's what I've been doing for years, and most of us, we're all writers, right? So that's what we've been doing in comics is you're allowing somebody to make a living off of their talents. And so whatever industry you're working in, but particularly in art where it's non-essential, again, that's part of the bit that makes this so spooky as well. It is that it's an incredible thing, because you're saying your talent, your skills, and doing this thing that doesn't put food on the table for anybody. It's not farming. It's not, it's not police work. It's not these things that are very grungy and need to be done for a society to function. No, this is a pleasure thing. This is an entertainment thing. This is an expression. Yes, and so being able to allow somebody to exist, or at least help somebody exist in that very unique and very, very gifted place, is a wonderful gift. And it's one of the things I take the most pride in the work. I'm so glad.
Yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, it's just such a wonderful relationship, I think.
But you're looking at executives, and they ain't gonna look at that the same.
No,
that's what I knew. The second I started seeing this, and especially again for corporate art, I was like, yeah, they don't have that kind of empathy. They don't have that level of thinking. In fact, they are particularly in public traded companies. They should not morally look at it that way, because they have to serve the shareholders and those who are pumping money into it, not that's anybody tough. Under it, not the employees, none of that. And we see that a lot these days in any kind of creative media. Video games in particular are very not the greatest systems to work in, yet they are extremely labor and creative intense works and in fields, and it's art's going to be tough. Art's going to be tough for a while. And again, when we were talking about our meeting, I feel it 100% appropriate to understand this mechanism and figure out how to use it as a tool so that you aren't crushed by it later.
It's much better to get ahead of the times than to fall behind them.
Yeah, and NFTs had this kind of energy behind it, but it didn't have the power. It currently does not have the same power to affect society and pop culture Even though so many rich people are very loud about it because they're putting their money into fiat currency, which isn't much different than any other currency, but these days. But nonetheless, it's not backed by an army, right? But also it's I don't know. It didn't have this ability to jump in that it does, right? Like this, you just sign up to the service and now you can generate a ton of beautiful, quote unquote, sometimes more than others, images and very cool ideas. And you can see
funny things you just want to see.
Yes, exactly. And that's cool. I think that, again, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of potential in it. I think that's cool. I think it's a cool thing. But in that potential, there's just so much for abuse at the higher levels and not so much the lower levels. That idea, it's something as an artist in particular, I recommend folks pay attention to, because we've been having for like the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years, about, I think it was 75% last I read of new articles posted around the web are AI generated. It's nasty, and that's so you're able to glut this huge amount of content out, and I don't see how would not be attractive to.
That's awful, man.
To people,
that seems so moralistically wrong to me.
Yeah, and that's where AI is bad. Like there's a lot to it, and it's how we come to terms with it in the future that's going to really determine a lot of things for a lot of folks, and we'll see how it goes. But again, I recommend having fun with it while you still have that potential.
While you can,
yeah, exactly, and it's not 100% stigmatized, but at the same time, you can easily feed that stigmatism by, again, selling these AI prints or all these other things that you could do that right now, like it's very morally gray and it's legally gray. So there's going to be a lot of people just doing it. You got to make a living. It's hard times. I've been noticing a lot more. I think they are also AI generated, invoice email scams than I used to. Like over the last month, I've gotten like 15 to 20 invoices from companies I've never touched, where I used to just get the Nigerian prince kind of scam, right? Where it's like, it's very obvious it's not
what's creepy
legit.
Is like, you speak on that idea of yours of like bringing back the dead. Like I even started hearing stuff like I was on YouTube. I heard there was a Juice WRLD AI created song. They're bringing back dead artists and they're using AI to make them create new songs. Like, that's weird, dude.
Well, and it's not that, right? It's in the style of it's what the AI can comprehend around it. It's like paying another musician to make a new Mozart song, right? If it's a very skilled musician, it could be done if he really understood like the quality, but it's not that person. That person is gone. It's done. Just like the hologram fad that has died a little bit right now, but it's not going to go away.
Oh God!
But it's not. That's exactly. That part I'm not a fan of. I think it's that potential there.
That's the thing, though, right? That's the theme of my novel, is that any technology can have sides for good, but also sides for abuse. It really depends on how you use it and what your motivations and goals are, and so.
Yeah, and we'll see what it shakes out. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's just up to. We were talking about this earlier. The reality is consensus. So it really depends on how it's guided and how it's used and how acceptable it is to the public. And we'll see how quickly that takes foot or not. Again, NFTs, they really tried. They pushed it, especially when it like really hit. They were pushing it like crazy, and the public did not accept it to the level that would have made it sustainable and a new part of reality, right? It exists. They're still trying. It's lingering, but it never like gripped. Just like Mark Zuckerberg throwing everything into making a video game and saying, "Oh, this is new and revolutionary." It's not. I mean, any MMO, EverQuest is more revolutionary. The original EverQuest, right? It's just he was trying to guide perception that this is new, and it's like, no, Second Life, all these other things that have existed for a long time are doing it more and better. VR chat, it's just that, right? And if there is a company has really good AI and is actually able to make it a pop culture staple, that's a thing, but I have no idea. Again, it's just something to pay attention.
There was another one that came out about. It was I don't know if you guys heard about this. It was what was his name? I'll have to look it up real quick. But it was the first AI rapper signed to a major record label, and they put
I
out
did
one
hear
single
about
with a feature of like another popular artist. But apparently people got so much backlash because it was had a lot of like racist stereotypes, and they're like, why did you guys create this racist
That's the thing about
AI
AI
singer?
too.
And then they canceled them like immediately.
Yep, exactly. Well, that's what happens. These tools, again, these are non-creative individuals seeing a machine that can create, and so there's no soul in that interaction.
Yeah.
It's just I pay money, I get product, right?
Mm.
And that product's going to be what you expect. Again, AI, Microsoft did that talking AI, super racist because people
Oh,
are shit
God.
posters online, and where is it grabbing this information? Online. So
Oh, God.
I don't think that's gonna. I mean, there's gonna be ways to refine it, right, and get better, but that's gonna take there's gonna be somebody paid to do that, so it still has a human element in it.
True.
And it's gonna get better. It's gonna learn, right, what works and what doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's still just. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's not conscious, so it's just does what it does. It's a machine, and so it's still going to need some kind of human touch, and that's not going to go away. But to the standard of the industry and the amount of those jobs, that's going to change, and I'm very sad to see that. But I don't see this is a Pandora's box. I don't think we can shove all the evil in the world back into. I don't. Once it's opened, right? This one was one of those that I saw, and that's why I was like, I better pay attention to it at the very least. I don't see it like making amazing comics. Maybe in 10 years, but right now, no. I don't see it doing a couple different things like amazing music. I don't think that's going to happen for a while. There's an AI channel on YouTube that's been playing one song for like, God, I don't know, since it went up, and it's probably been, I think, over a year. And it's just metal. It's AI generated metal, and it's just playing one song constantly. So it's just
like a never-ending song.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that's what it is. It's metal
weird,
and switches
bro.
up time signatures and stuff. So that's going to go, and it's going to continue refining. But is it going to actually get better by refining to the human ear? I don't know. Maybe, but maybe not. But these are doors that are not going to close unless literally society collapsed. Right? That's the problem with this thing. So it's a tough.
And who knows? They may be the cause of that collapse at some point.
Yeah, that's a bit too. Is that I forgot what China named one of their AI Skynet just cause.
Jesus, that's not even
bugged
funny.
the hell out of me. Yeah,
Okay,
no, I forgot. It's a little funny, and that's why they did it. But at the same time, it's like really, but
really,
whatever.
like,
they
Jesus.
probably wanted the publicity too, right? I wouldn't say a word of it.
If I created an AI, I would totally name it Skynet.
Oh, there you go. See?
I would name it Hal.
Hal would be a good one too. Hal would be a good one too. Or Mother.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, but it's only something that time will tell, and the consensus of, again, the reality consensus on it will tell. But I do recommend any artists who are listening to it, if you don't want to use it, please don't, but be familiar with what it's going to do with your environment. You need to adapt and survive with it. So you got to find some way, if not to use it as a tool, to stand apart from that tool. So make amazing work. Pretty soon, pinups and posters and very simple, what was like $300 gig or whatever for you is going to be $100 gig for you to paint over.
Let me offer you this idea, right? Like if you are adverse to being, wanting to use these as a tools, but think of it this way, right? If the AI is going to try and come in and take over something that an artist would do, you should just use that AI against itself. Use the AI to do the bare bones. Use it as a tool. Whatever you have to do to make it your own, but use it so that you can still be faster than the AI, because you're using the AI to go faster and faster with better quality, potentially, right? Like you're never going to beat an AI, but if you can use an AI against itself, that's something.
So at the most basic level, right, it's the difference between using a paintbrush or finger painting to do the same image, right? So that you can view it that way, which is the artist I'm collaborating with. That's how he views it, and so I'm exploring that because that's the only path forward I find morally usable. If not, like it's the only one I find like purely in the gray compared to a lot of things, particularly if you're not again trying to do a very specific style. That's the other bit, like it's a little rough if you're looking for a specific style, especially of the dead or the living if they're still selling their own work. So it's that one's rough, but if you're just using it to pull images from previous works offline to combine into an idea that will then be painted over, again, it's not going away, so I don't know what to do, so I might as well figure it out and use it, like you're saying. I do recommend that. But again, if you are completely adverse to it, then you need to find a way to produce something that it cannot. And most every artist can do that. You just have to find a way to make sure that you're standing out one way or another. And again, you're an individual human being, and I believe that you can do that. You just got to work at it. So, I have no, like, in legitimate works that I'm super like proud of, I have no real desire to integrate AI into my work. For smaller explorations and side things that I can now do because that artist's price has gone far down, because he can utilize these new tools that save him 15 hours on a piece, right? Then it allows us to put more potential out there, which also means that the market's going to be more glutted with work, both quality and just terrible. So you also have to figure out how to stand out on a more loud and filled marketplace. And that's been something we've been dealing with in indie comics for quite a few years now, is that there are just so many projects out there, particularly through crowdfunding, that are competing for a smaller and smaller sum of money, because art again is a non-necessity. So it's very tough. It's very tough to do that, and handicapping yourself even further because this tool came out. I understand from a moral bit, from a human soul bit, but from a practical, sadly mechanized societal bit, like it is just not going to be healthy for you. But nonetheless, I also don't think you have to use this tool. I think it's just very smart to be aware of it and to stay on top of it in terms of how you need to adapt your own work to survive around it. I don't think it's an end of the world scenario, but it is something that you shouldn't just let occur while you're doing your own thing. Because I think it'll easily overwhelm you, because again, it's a machine. It does not rest. It does not sleep. What is that bit? It has one goal.
It's funny. I don't, not to get too far off topic, but I was listening to Michael's podcast the other day, and then also talked to Matt, and it kind of started this conversation between me and Matt after, because I brought up the podcast, and it was this idea of like, oh, the Terminator is kind of like a horror movie icon, like Michael Myers, where he just comes at you and he doesn't stop, and you can't run or hide from him.
Yeah, the original is a slasher film, kind of.
That's so wild, isn't it? I never thought about Terminator being like a slasher, but it kind of is.
Yeah, the first film, it most certainly is. It's a horror film. And then the second one, they made it kind of a family action film, but yeah.
Keep in mind what one of the very definitions of slasher is there has to be stalking involved by one person. And he has to be trying to kill them, usually in some brutal fashion. But man. That's exactly what the T-800 does. He stalks her down and tries to kill her.
He was trying to make a horror film at that point. It was just his version of one.
It was like a sci-fi slasher.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which is so
with some time travel elements in it.
Yeah.
I gotta say, when I watched The Terminator in 1984 when I was a kid, it certainly felt like a horror movie to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, yeah, the lighting and setup. It's a very dark movie. A lot of red.
And like in college, you know.
And the good guy's just another person, right? That's the other bit too. Is again, the sequel was more of a family kind of feeling to it, with the kid and the relationship and all that building. And then you have another equal strength fighting this other strength, compared to the first film, where it's like just a dude sent back naked to try and protect the woman he'll fall in love with against this relentless death bot. Very, very different feel to it. Very different feel, because you knew he wasn't probably going to make it, but.
You want to know something kind of cool about the comics? You mentioned that they had to come through time naked, right? In the Terminator comic. I believe it was in the very first issue of the very first Terminator comic from Dark Horse. I could be wrong. It could be issue 2 or 3 or somewhere in there. But what they did was the Terminators took a human with them. And when they went through time, they came out, and the human's like all acting like he's not feeling good, and the Terminators just walk up and they reach up into his guts and they pull out weapons that they stashed up inside.
Oh yeah.
Jesus
well,
Christ.
I mean, if I was a writer for Dark Horse, that totally makes sense, right? 'Cause you want to bring a gun back with you, and so far the rules of the Terminator universe, as long as it's encased in flesh, it can come back. So that
That's wild.
makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I thought he was going to wear him as a skin suit, so that's a little bit better. At least he just
like in Hellraiser, first Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Great scene.
Classic,
I was like,
classic.
I love that scene, dude. I was like, that's, oh my god, no, run. I was like, Jesus, that's so good.
Question though. You guys have both seen the Hellraiser films, right? At least the first few.
No, again, I'm not a horror guy.
No.
I'm not a
Oh, that's
horror
right. You
guy.
did
I've
say
seen
you're not a
very
horror
little
guy.
horror.
Yeah,
Very, very little horror I've seen. Like
Michael's turned me
a
into
couple times
horror
I've been
guy.
dragged it, but like my
Yeah, I'll take that.
my tolerance for the thematics of horror is just very low. It's just very low. I appreciate what it does. I appreciate why it's doing it, but like for me, like I can really appreciate horror if the point behind it is noble. So like Berserk, there's a ton of disgusting horror, but like I have no problem with it because the intent of that communication is super noble. He's trying to show you something very specific. Whereas a lot of Western horror is they're trying to entertain you with shock. In a lot of cases, there's a lot of better works out there that do it for different reasons, but a lot of it, and then that to me is like, well, I don't enjoy the shock, so there's not much else there for me.
So the what I like about, and I think you're right. I do think you're right, but I think there's certain things that elevate movies that on surface may appear to be just that. Like you might look at like a Michael Myers and say like,
The
oh, he's
Thing,
just a killer,
love,
right?
for
But
instance.
it's
A lot of the John Carpenter stuff, like I'm a big fan because usually he does have a reason behind it. Like the
well, that's the
he's
thing, right?
Exploring the horror, yeah.
Michael, even those other things like slasher codes, like Michael Myers, they do have an intent behind, which is it's the horror of something coming at you that you can't reason with, you can't argue with, you can't buy your way out of. You, there's no way to stop it, and that is kind of a terrifying idea in and of itself. You know?
Honestly, in my opinion, and maybe this is just like how I appreciate horror, but horror gives me an opportunity to experience really horrible shit in a safe environment.
Yes.
So I get to feel that fear. I get to go through that. Oh my God, did you just see that guy's head come off? You know, I get to see all this stuff going on. But yet I'm still safe.
So what I'm hearing is that everybody gets something different out of horror.
Probably, yeah.
Oh yeah, I would. I mean, that's why it's been such a persistent genre for almost 100 years now, in terms of film, at least. Is because of that. There is a very visceral appeal to not being in danger, but feeling the feelings of danger. Like I 100% behind that. I just not like it. It's not something that fulfills me.
Draws you.
It's the same kind of concept as people go on roller coasters for.
Yes.
Well, I hate roller coasters, bro.
Well, see, I like roller coasters. That's a bit too. I like speed. I like that kind of stuff. I like.
Oh, you know what scares me on a roller coaster? The part when you have to go really slow and get to the top. It fucking scares the shit out of me. I'm afraid of heights.
You know why? The anticipation of something is always 100% of the time greater than the actual event.
That's
so
great, bro.
That creeping up on that hill, knowing you got that huge drop on the other side, that is actually worse than the actual falling down the other side.
You're right, dude. You're so right. As soon as you fall, you're like, oh, yay.
Exactly.
That's funny, dude. Oh, man. That's
really
so
so back to my question, though. I guess this question is just for Michael, since how you haven't watched it.
Yes, go for
it. With the Hellraiser films. Now, in my opinion, Hellraiser 1 and Hellraiser 2, while connected, are two entirely different films.
I think I would agree with that, yeah.
My question is, for you as a fan, do you prefer Hellraiser 1, where the Cenobites and the whole hell and the whole dimension of all that, of pleasure and pain, the whole idea is kind of in the background of what's going on. And, like Hellraiser 1 is really kind of actually like a love story. It's really demented, granted, but it's really a love story about how much she loves him so much she's willing to kill people and bring him bodies so that he can come back in a corporeal form. You know what I mean? It's a love story, but when you get into Hellraiser 2, you totally get to explore the dimension and actually go into hell and all that. What is your preference between the two?
I think I have to go with number 1 because I think it feels really classic, but I also like how grounded it is. Like in 2, you say we get to go explore the realm and stuff, but I love how in the first one we're just on Earth and we're just kind of getting glimpses into this other world we've never known about, but has been there the whole time. And I love the thriller plot of like you said, of her bringing these bodies, like luring these men in, right? It's like it's such a good plot of just a thriller on its own, and then you add on the supernatural elements, and you've got like a hit movie,
right?
Right? It's really and the effects. Oh my god, the effects in number 1.
Oh
like
my god, the practical effects of that when he's actually coming back,
forming back, and you hear his spine
god,
forming, and coming into place.
Oh my god,
all the little
that
cracks
was
and crackles, and yeah, it's a gnarly movie. If you ever see one Hellraiser, Cody, that's a good one to watch. It's a good book. It's a good movie. It's based on a short book by Clive Barker, and I believe he also directed it as well.
Yeah.
Gosh,
that was his first film, I think. Actually, even Hellraiser.
Oh, okay, yeah. I read the book in college. I just saw the movie recently, but I read the book.
You read the book? How is the book compared to the movie?
The book is incredible, dude. The book is amazing. The movie really lives up a lot to it, but there's just something I think about because it's your imagination, right? You can imagine things, and it's so horrifying. And it was one of the early horror books I read in college, and it was just like I was just horrified. Like she's luring them to kill them. Like, oh my god, it was just so horrifying to me. Like, so yeah, it's a good book, and the movie was very remarkably what's the word when it's like the same faithful, yeah,
accurate,
right? Yeah.
I think that's because the guy who wrote the book wrote the script and directed the movie.
Yeah,
I think that's the only way you're really going to get something like that.
That's true. That's very rare too. You don't see that a lot, do you?
No, and
well,
Clive
was it
Barker did that
Sin
with all
City?
his
I
movies,
think he did.
Oh, really?
Oh, that
Sin
would
City
make
as
sense
well?
for Clive. I think Frank Miller did write and direct that. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Probably not the second one though, right?
No. Even though
Makes sense.
well, I think the second one was like all original content too. It was named after one of the shorts, if I remember right, but like it didn't really have much to do with it except for stylistically, right? That very unique look.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wasn't as received
HD
well, I think.
Yeah, I was the same with the 300, right? 302 was also not very well received.
I didn't even watch
I've
that
started
one
that multiple. Yeah, I started it multiple times. Just no, this isn't very good.
Yeah, I just didn't want to bother.
The second 300 movie is not anywhere near as good as the first movie, but I'm kind of a history buff, and from a historical perspective, I did like
so much
showing
better,
the rest of what was going on during that battle.
Oh,
you know, that little thing with that was going on there that they showed in 300 was a very small part of that battle, and I really liked them showing that in the second one.
I mean, historians hate 300 for many reasons anyway, because it is like a fantasy retelling of it. It's a folk version of it, right?
Totally.
But because I've seen so many people. It's like, well, it looks good and it got people interested in this idea, but it is just
the Persians look like monsters, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the bit, right? And then all this bit, but to try and give a scale in terms of the size of armies, the film did really good. Like for being filmed in a warehouse, like I'm really impressed with.
Jeez,
and
it
just how hard the guys had to work out too.
It totally launched Gerard Butler's career, man.
Oh yeah, that's a great role. It's fun. It's got a bunch of iconic scenes. Like it's really good. The comics very short compared to it. It's brief, but it's got Frank Miller's style and tone to it, and so it's
which I love that they translated his style so well into the movie. Like the iconic shot of them knocking all the guys off the edge. That's straight from the comic.
Oh yeah, and the
That ripped
narration
right out.
too, that vibe to it, like that was great. They did a really good job there,
Mhm.
and that's why Sin City I think did so well too. It's like, oh well, it was proven. All right, well then we'll try it with this. And it's more
Mhm.
noir, and then they were willing to take a risk on multiple storylines and things that Hollywood sometimes doesn't want to do, even if with somebody like Mickey Rourke and Bruce Willis attached and all that, right? Like it was a risk. It was a heck of a risk, and good for him being one of the few comic book creators to break into that world with any kind of consistency and actually get to make his work out of that. It was very cool. But I do have to head out as well, folks. It's been
Do
2
you
hours. I got a
mind
puppy to take care of.
if I show off something real quick before we end the podcast?
Sure.
I have
Go
something
for
ready
it.
to show off. I wanted to show this just because I got the first 2 pages back from my manga,
Nice.
and I
Okay.
was hoping I could share it on the podcast this weekend.
Go for it.
Thanks. So the artist is Porygon on Twitter, and it's Porygon spelled with a 0 instead of an O. And so I hope y'all like it. This is the second page actually that I'm sharing. This is the first page. No, this is that second page. Never mind. Yeah, here's the first page. Are you guys seeing this shit? Okay, yeah, I just have it on the
Yeah.
screen. I wasn't sure. Okay, so yeah, so this is my cyberpunk manga. It's about a racer, and he's gonna eventually meet a hacker, and they're gonna go on a crazy adventure. I like to describe the comic as Sherlock Holmes meets the Fast and Furious in the cyberpunk setting. That's my shorthand. But I'm
Wow,
really
that's a
excited.
mind bender.
Yeah. Exactly, man. It's gonna be like, imagine like Guy. I don't know if you know the Guy Ritchie. You probably do the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
How they're much more action oriented. I want to
Yeah.
take that kind of inspiration, throw in some of the cars and the racing elements of Fast and Furious, and just have a really good time with a crazy cyberpunk story. And so I've always wanted to do a manga style, so it's been really hard to find an artist who can do like a manga style that was really satisfactory.
Yeah,
I had an artist.
that face is very. I don't know the mangaka's name, but the creator of My Hero Academia, that face is almost straight out of it.
Well, it's funny because the artist that's their favorite manga is My Hero Academia.
Yeah. Right away, like how she set up face, the eyes in particular
That's
are very
funny.
iconic. Which is it's a good style. It's a good style to emulate. It was like when I saw the anime back when it came out. At first, I was like, oh, this is at least the line art and the face structure isn't cookie cutter to every other manga I've read, right? Like, so that was cool to see. But yeah, no, totally.
Yeah,
it looks a lot like.
That's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that
Yeah.
the inspirations
cool.
are getting, can see him in there. That's actually really cool to hear. So yeah, it was fun because I was like,
I wish I could comment more on it. I don't read. I've read like one manga comic.
That's funny, man. Well, I was actually going to say this earlier when Cody brought it up. I really, really, really think you should read Berserk, Michael. I think you would love the series. I think it would be one of the most incredible horror series you've read. I think you would just love
it's
it,
Jungian philosophy filtered through Western European like history and fantasy and folklore to tell a story of a very specific. It's over years. He changes like what the goal of the story is, but he does it masterfully. By the point I'm at now, which is I'm waiting for volume 41 right now. Hopefully it's here next week.
Dude.
Is it?
Okay, yeah. Really? I got mine.
I'll wait for it to ship the physical. Okay.
Oh, no.
But I'm excited because basically the story of Guts changes so beautifully. It's an incredible story. It's got so much weight and the darkness he's able to explore in a great way.
Yeah, that's the main character's name. So
he was they found him in a pile of corpses when he was a kid. His mercenary band too. So yeah, it's a trip as a baby. That's what it is. It's Gutsu. Yeah, it's why he was named that. I'm sure is because they wanted that true feel. And then his antagonist is extremely the polar opposite exploration of the same ideas. It's really, really well done. I enjoy it. Like artistically, it's probably one of the most beautiful pieces put to paper. But story wise as well. Yeah, it's incredible. Very much worth your time.
Detailed, man.
The first, you can technically skip the first arc because it's basically him feeling out what the series is going to feel like, but I wouldn't. Like it's much more tropey and classic manga, like Fist of the North Star and stuff. It's more hero based than story based. But then after Black Swordsman arc, it just.
But I also think that's the reason I think I recommend starting with that arc is because it really gives you because the next arc isn't as horror themed. It's a little different.
Yes.
But the first arc you get this is a horror comic, so we might diverge for a little while. But don't forget, this is a horror comic. We're gonna get to that. Don't forget.
Yeah, he starts
'Cause
off being seduced or seducing. I don't know which way it is. This beautiful woman who is not a woman. Exactly. It's a trip, and that's like the first couple pages. If I remember right. He really wanted to kick you in the teeth with like how adult this work's going to be. It was very cool to see.
I
totally recommend that,
Michael. Yeah.
There's a reason
I have
it's
all
legendary and
41
iconic.
volumes.
It took me a long time to get on board of it. I had always heard of it, and it looked like, oh well, this is just again how I take a lot of horror at face value. Like this is just gross, right? But no, once I got into it, I was like, oh no, there's very much a very strong and again I would say noble reason he hits those notes. And
but Michael, let me tell you, if you're really into the really horrific shit and you love that, like you were saying, you got that too, man. You don't worry, you're gonna see some really horrific fucking shit, dog.
What is it? The master of horror manga is what, Junji Ito, and I haven't read any of his work, but I've seen the paneling and the art, and he's like psychological, right?
Yes,
he just wants to mess with ideas and concepts and then throw it in your face. And looks real like that's creepy. Like that's the kind of horror that would get to me, and that I would actually kind of like check out, is because it's more conceptual than it is gore or slasher.
Yeah, Junji Ito is my other favorite manga. It was Kentaro Miura and Junji Ito. They're my top two mangakas for sure. I just love Junji Ito's way he can take the everyday and turn it into horror. And so
just the concept of spirals is one of them. He's just taking the idea of spirals, and then everything's turning into a spiral. It's just
simple
crazy.
concepts that are really horrific. So yeah, good shit, man. Manga, there's a lot of good horror in manga, man. You're missing out.
The main reason I've read more manga than comics at this point, which kind of sucks to me, is because of consistency, right? Like once you read the first 2 chapters, you know at least what the vision's going to be, so it's easy for me to understand and like it and then commit. Whereas graphic novels, you can do that often unless they're volumes, in which case you never know if the creative team's going to change the next volume. So I've had rough things, so that's why I've been able to do this, because I like seeing a long form story be fulfilled by a single creative team. And you got that with X-Men back in the day, so I'm sure the Chris Claremont stuff, I've heard nothing but great stuff. So there are things that are long form in comics that do that, but it's not as satisfying to me. There's some single graphic novels I really like. I've got one full run of Sergio Aragonis's Gru the Wanderer, which is just a comedy Conan the Barbarian parody.
Really?
And it's that consistent vision every issue, so I'm happy to read that all the way through 180 issues, right? There's times where I can do that with Western comics. It's not their modus operandi like it is in manga. So that's the difference. But you also don't get color, and I like the tones that colors. That's why I work it. It's why I work in Western comics, and I don't really have much of an interest in trying to make a manga, as I'd call it.
And see, I like doing manga in black and white because it's cheap.
Well, that's part of it. Right? Even my black and white, like Maxi's work could stand on its own. It's very clean, heavily inked. It could work like that, but just the extra level that our colorists throughout all 3 and now 4 issues have done. It's next level of communication, which manga doesn't get to experience. There's a few times, although I think Full Metal Alchemist, they went and did a full color because the anime did really good.
Nice. That's nice.
So you can buy that in full color and that larger viz big kind of style size, but I don't need it. Like the storytelling doesn't need it. Whereas my work, I think it kind of does need it. Again, like super imposter syndrome. I don't think my writing on just those lines would be enough. So that's the bit. But yeah, again,
where can we find you?
Just different types of storytelling. Yeah. Yep, exactly. But yeah, thank you folks so much for having me. It was great to be back on.
Don't forget to plug your stuff, man. Know what you got.
So real quick, let me do this. I'm going to share screen if I can. Is it that one? Yeah, it's that one. So there you go. Here is issue number 4's line art with some cut panels, throw pacing around. So we're about done. Here are some of the, let me go back. Here are the colors. We'll go with web because we're on the internet. So we're moving. We're moving along. It's coming together. It's a palette that Steve hasn't used before, which I'm really excited to continue to explore. I think he's done a beautiful job. I'm super excited for this to get into people's hands. Here's some just cut panels. In fact, I used one as my profile pic today. I hope folks enjoy it. I hope I can write around this incredible artwork enough that I don't stand in the way. I stood in the way a little bit in issue 2 and issue 3. I think I hit the right balance. So I want to do the same with this, but this has a bit more message to it than 3 did. 3 was just like playing in a comic world and history. This one, I took 2 very old stories and tried to combine them. It was the concept of wabi sabi. I took an Eastern story, which is the 4 sights of the Buddha. So his awakening from being a rich, spoiled prince who had never seen any suffering in his life to understanding and becoming an empathetic being. And I took Dante's Inferno, which is him understanding what happens in hell. And I smashed them together in a cowboy Western trope with a lot of anti-corporate messages. So if you folks are interested in an adventure, a bit of action, a bit of intrigue, a little bit of grandstanding maybe. I'm super excited. It's finally come together. By the end of the year, we should have the digital out, and beginning of next year, we'll be shipping out to backers. Pre-orders are open until the colors finish. Once the colors are done, I am closing that sucker. We are at 14,914. So it'd be crazy if we could cross 15K before I finish this, but I'm not counting on it. But if folks see this and are interested and haven't already checked out my work, please do. Indiegogo, Deck Iron Steel Cowboy, and you'll probably find the latest campaign. Just look for issues 1 through 4 and you'll find it.
Excellent, man. Well, thank you for joining us, dude. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on a future episode.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Live long and prosper.
Adios.
See you, dude. And Michael, where can people find you online?
My personal account is right there with the Michael Nunley 5 thing there. But you can find at Comics Omen is where you can find Omen Comics on Twitter, and at Revelation Comic is where you can find our imprint label, Revelation Comic. All of our comics, you can find them both at the Wikid store and on Global Comics. You can check them out there. Most of them are free to read on Global Comics, so you can check those out there. You can also find us on Omen Revelations Podcast. You can find me on Countless Corpses Podcast.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you joining us as well. And go check us out online at our website, wikidpublishing.net, or on Twitter at Wikid Publishing. And we will see you on a future episode. We're going to go ahead and attempt to play the theme song as we leave here. We'll see how it goes. Thanks again, guys. We'll hopefully see you next week on another episode of the Wikid Weekend Podcast. And you all have a great weekend. Bye, guys.